Now we're live on Facebook, live on Instagram. Oh man, welcome to another week. Man, I'm telling you, it's been quite the week, quite the journey up to this point, and it's all to be expected where we are. All the attitudes, all the attitudes. I mean, there's all kinds of attitudes all over the board, but the main thing to focus on are the Patriots. You, the Patriots, you, the OGs out there. You've been reading, you've been studying, you've been learning things you never knew before, especially military strategy, military tactics, things that you just never knew before. A lot of veterans have learned a lot up to this point, because I think so many people have such a misperception of the military. People think that everyone in the military knows about special operations or Delta Force or nuclear or whatever. You can know in a broad sense, but do you know the intricacies of what's going on militarily, strategies, tactics? And that requires a lot of kinds of thinking: critical thinking, strategic thinking, analytical thinking, convergent thinking, divergent thinking, creative thinking. There's all kinds of thinking skills that goes into it. And then you learn to separate your emotions. Just the same thing as President Trump. There's a specific video that President Trump shared not too long ago on his True Social page, which a lot of people still aren't over on True Social, which you should be. But President Trump shared a video, and it only had like 100 views the last time I looked at it. And it's a particular person. This guy's he's a multimillionaire, a billionaire himself, and he said there's one thing about President Trump that a lot of people don't realize, is he don't give a what you think about him. You can say the worst things about him, and he don't care, because he knows it's not true. He knows what his purpose. And so many people, you haven't found your purpose, all right? You haven't found your purpose, and you're not allowing the empowerment to enter your, what we call your holy manna, what you're feeding your mind, what you're feeding your soul. You're still going to every wrong name and face, and a lot of them at this point, a lot have jumped ship. I mean, I just checked off another check mark myself. I am finally, every check mark that President Trump's been called and accused, I finally got mine. And if you're following people like that, if they have time to try to lie and use false accusations, they're not for you, period, with anything. So it shows you that people don't know the mission because they're not part of the mission. And, every veteran, if you're retired, first off, there's a lot of veterans that follow me, and they know this. If you're a retired veteran, guess what you still fall under? The Uniform Code of Military Justice. You're still under oath always. That's what I am. And so we can be used voluntarily and involuntarily, and we also can be called into unique positions with what's going on, depending on what it is, and if we want an opportunity. I took mine. I found my purpose. I'm where I'm supposed to be. So, once you learn that in your life, to stay in your lane, know what you've been called to do, whether you believe in God and God form or a great spirit or spirituality, whatever it is, you find your lane and stay in it. Quit worrying about everybody else, right? Because I can tell you right now, every single patriot that reads and studies and comprehends everything that I put together is very niche, because all you need to know is what's in between this bracket right here. That's why I put brackets around it like that. All you need to know, if you really want to know what President Trump's working with, not the drama and not the opinions that don't have solutions and not all this surface level talk that you hear every pundit doing, majority of the blue checks out there that already had a big name, they're saying the same things you've always heard your whole life. It don't empower you. It don't empower you as an individual. It don't empower you as a community. It don't empower you as a county, a state, or nothing. It's the same old stuff, which means you have a responsibility. Everybody has a responsibility. So if someone's not trying to empower you and they're trying to mislead you with all kinds of false accusations, if they're calling me the same thing that they're calling President Trump, they're not part of this movement. They're not part of this operation for sure. Now, I'm a low man on the totem pole. But I've already got Department of War credentials. Matter of fact, I talked to my sponsor yesterday. got some new assignments that I'm going to be working on. And I went through all the documentation. One, as a retiree, we already have a Department of War identification number because you're retired. So if I was doing something that I wasn't supposed to be doing, I would already be found out because we are in a full-fledged operation. And that just shows how ignorant people are, is because if you believe in this, then you have to believe in everything that this is doing. The liberals believe it because they're whining and complaining about it. So the liberals know the swamp's being drained. So if you believe in this, and if you're reading and studying everything that this entails, you will know who's in charge and what they're doing. And a guy like me who's got a full name, full face, you can background check me already straight out the gate because I don't hide my name. I'm not some half name with a pseudonym or anything like that. You've known my full name from day one, just like President Trump. So anyone who's trying to knock you off and deter you with some kind of false stuff that they can't even prove, even if it would have been true, they're not for you, right? They're for themselves. They're not for empowering you. And that's what this whole thing is about. We came to a crossroads of civilization. You heard Elon say we came to a crossroads of civilization. What people are not doing right now, the ones still out there in the negative world, and all the people out there feeding all these different things, it's all out here to knock you off. But the things that's supposed to empower you, you got to listen to, and you got to feed it. You got to apply it, because that's what our founders did. Our founders already had a Magna Carta, and they had all these other kind of documentations, and none of it ever had a true, solid foundation. And what's crazy about our founders is they actually started a war for a one main slogan, motto, taxation without representation. Well, we have representation now, House of Representatives and Senate. You have representatives, but you don't even know what they do and how they operate, how they function, and who they're supposed to answer to, we the people. So our founders started a war back then based off of that. And then after the war, during the war, they declared independence. After the war, they drafted a Constitution. The Constitution don't apply to you and me individually. The Constitution is a framework to keep our representatives in check, the checks and balances. So how can you know how to keep them in check if all you know is drama and surface level stuff? You don't. And this is where we are. That's what is called the crossroads of civilization, where we came to a place where we have a very specific military strategy. We have a very specific military strategy. This is it. This is the strategy right here. You're seeing it. You're already in this 4 right here, the 47, but we're not done with the 47. This is why so many rhinos look atrocious. A lot of people are jumping ship and saying things about President Trump and saying things about the military and saying things that they don't have to. But what's great about it is they're exposing themselves for you, the patriots. They're showing you the real patriots who have been reading, who have been studying, who have been applying. You, the wheat, you're going to be the wheat. You're the growth of the future. The shaft, all this other stuff, you got to remember them and the ones that said, I'm MAGA, I'm a President Trump supporter. You got to remember all those who looked the part, but they didn't what? They didn't have it right here. They had it here, but they don't have it here. They may have it here, but they don't have it here. And what's the Bible tell you about that? The Bible tells you about that. What you feed yourself, your spirit, and what comes out, it's the fruits of the Spirit, right? The fruits. You can judge them by the fruit. You can judge a tree by the fruit it bears. You can judge them by their fruits. So if there's people out there slinging all these false accusations about President Trump and me and anyone out there, it shows you what their intent and motives are. They're not for you. They're not for this nation. They're not for the future. They're not for anything of that nature. And the liberals and Democrats, they have really roasted themselves. And the rhinos right now are true, their colors are coming out. They had to jump on board, and now they're jumping ship with President Trump. Oh, he's busting this base up, and we're going to war. No, we're not. And see, you won't listen to military. This is a military operation. And if you'll take it as a challenge, if you just take it as a challenge, say, all right, I'm challenging you to take all the laws and the orders that I have in these books right here, chronological. This is a workbook, and it's real simple. It's a chronological order of the laws and the orders, invoked from 2017 to present day. All right, you don't believe it? Then how about you leave your false accusations out and all your negativity? How about you take this and go, you know what? I hate Derek Johnson. I loathe him. I wish he would fall off the face of the earth. Well, you want to make me fall off? Read this, all right, or study my pages, study the laws and orders currently invoked. And guess what's going to happen to you? You ain't going to find anything but the laws and the orders of the 45-47. And you're going to expose yourself and your hatred and your jealousy and your animosity. That's what you're going to find. All right. Then part two, I went into heavy special operations for all the people out there who want to get in the mindset of how special operations works. Special operations, strategies, tactics, layers of thinking, layers of kind of thinking, and how you think like operators. All right. It's not secretive. Then, if you'll read books like this, Military, Government, and Martial Law. I highly recommend this book. All right? William Burkheimer. Highly recommend it. And this book was written solely off of a debate that General Sherman had with Colonel Winthrop. All right? And it'll tell you in this book that military law is the precedent. The law of war and the law of land warfare supersedes the Constitution. And guess what's written in the Constitution? In Article 1, Section 8, Clause 14, that the Congress is to do what? Make laws pertaining to what? Military. All right, so they already have validated this. So in every law that we have what they call a codification or an amendment to the Constitution, guess what's in it? The president's to do this, the president's to do this, the presidential finding, a presidential order, a president. The president is the what? The guardian of national security. The president is the commander over the Army and the Navy. So see, so many people out there saying that Congress is the only one who can declare the war. That's false. They can declare it, but guess what can happen? When there becomes a what? A threat to national security, the guardian of the nation can do what? Who's going to listen to Congress? If the commander-in-chief says we have a national security emergency, we are being invaded, we are being attacked, who's the military going to listen to? Congress or the commander-in-chief? That's pretty easy when you're a veteran. Very easy. All right, when we're talking about a true, not abuse of power anywhere, we're talking about a true emergency. When there's a true emergency, who are they going to listen to? And so many people are just missing what is going on. And if you really love President Trump, if you really love the military, if you really love your service members from your family, if you really loved it, you would do every one of us a justice by reading it. If you hate me, why do you need to steal my trademark? Remember, some of you OGs remember 3 years ago I had to deviate off route because some moron tried to steal my federal trademark. They were trying to prevent book sales and intercept messages and all these things. What would stealing a federal trademark have to do with laws and orders invoked? If you hate me, if you loathe me, if you want me dead, outside of doing it yourself, why don't you take the laws and the orders that I talk about, all I've ever talked about from day one? This is how simple this is. It's also how clownish this is. All I do is talk about military laws, military strategies, military tactics, all because I'm a retired veteran, but I got an opportunity to get a badge, and I'm in operations at a different capacity. Think how silly this is, that a retired veteran is sitting here telling you things that it's not secretive. I've seen messages, I've seen comments. How can he talk about it if it's a military operation? Because it's already made public to you. When something's made public, it's for consumption. But if you don't know what it is and you've never seen it before, then you're going to have to need someone like me who says, hey, I know what that is. Here it is over here. It's not in federal law. It's in military law. It's in military strategy. It's in military tactics. It's in an unconventional warfare publication. It's in an unconventional warfare manual. It's in an irregular warfare publication. It's in an irregular warfare manual. And then I can show you the validations if you're skeptical the right way, going, whoa, I've never heard of this in my life. Great. You're not supposed to if you've never had before. Great. I can show you where the validation is. Here's a validity. There's a visual. There's a verbal. President Trump's post here. That's a validation of this. Here's a visual over here. That's a validation of this. All of these are law war manual terms. They're not federal government anywhere. Those are validities. Those are your validations. And it sounds cocky, braggadocious, all the words. It does. I get it when I say this. When I'm about to say it, it sounds this way. But if you only listen to me and this blueprint and the people that I lead you to, the podcast that I'm on, if you would just listen to those entities and erase all the others and simply study this blueprint right here. It's all laws and orders. I didn't write the laws. I didn't write the orders. I didn't give the command to the orders. They're all there. So if you love President Trump, it's there. If you love the military, it's all there. So if you hate someone, you take the same material and prove them wrong with the material if they're wrong. But see, this is not a right or wrong operation. This is a get it right, drain the swamp, get it right for the future, and it's exactly what this book right here and other books talks about, prevention. And what everybody's not doing, not you patriots, but a lot of your friends and family, what they're not doing, they're not accepting responsibility. All of a sudden, people are demanding things they never demanded before. You're demanding justice, and you're demanding this, and why are we working with Israel, and this, that, and other. You don't even know military strategies, military tactics, and then two, where were you all these years? Yeah, there could be one of you listening individually out there that don't like me or something like that. Yeah, you could be one person who maybe has been a voice in your family, in your community. Maybe you've been that person. But the majority of people who are whining and complaining and demanding right now, no, they have not. And social media can prove this. We've had social media now for 25 years or so, somewhere in there. Certain things, AOL. If you count AOL as social media and move it forward, drop them in the comments. Let's see your posts from way before President Trump. Go back and find on your posts and drop them in the comments where you were against Israel, or you were against this, or whatever it is that you are up in arms with President Trump about. Show us proof, because I guarantee you that you ain't got the proof. You don't have it, because you weren't told about it yet. You weren't told to care about it yet. But you also still, if you're that person, you don't know military strategies, you don't know military tactics, and you would have the world in World War III like that. These attitudes out there with this whole Israel thing, which I'm going to get to in a minute, these attitudes would have us in a world war so quick because they simply want things done their way versus learning how the military works. Military is a chain of command from the commander-in-chief down. Everyone has a role to play. Everybody knows their part. Nobody oversteps their rank. Nobody oversteps their pay grade. And wherever you are in that, you have to accept that because that's where you are. In the military, all right? This had to be done a certain way. Now, I know a lot of veterans personally that wanted to rip the Band-Aid off straight out the gate and be a full-fledged visual for you. I would have been good either way. Whatever the commanders would have decided, we were ready to roll. But let me tell you one thing. Let me just insert one more thing real quick, personal thing. All these haters out there, all these negative Nancy's and Debbie Downers, let me tell you something. I've got an ID on me right now, and I've got a badge on me. If things did go down, they're not, but if they did, if the world ever lit on fire and they did a voluntary callback, who's going back? Not all these clowns out there that have never been in the military, never been in law enforcement. Now, if you've never been in law enforcement or military yourself, that's okay. It's what you're yelling. It's what you're projecting. See, people's projections show their intent and their motives. So, the crossroads of civilization, you heard Elon say that. That was a massive calm, if you will, showing you that, hey, is it fun? No, it's not fun. Has gas been fun? Food costs been fun? This, that, and other? No. Have you seen your justice yet? No, you haven't yet. But you're missing some of the justice along the way. You're missing all the other arrests that's been going on. And it's leading up. Because if you consider yourself a quote-unquote patriot, if you consider yourself, I don't know if you are or not, but if you consider yourself a patriot, if you consider yourself awake, if you consider yourself a President Trump supporter, then none of this that's hitting the news right now is for you. Because if you knew military strategies and military tactics, if you'd listen to someone who does know, and the people I'm with, who are all special operations, by the way. So, while we're here, let's just go ahead and bust that little bubble for people. You don't get online. You can't buy these. You can't buy these online, by the way. Go to eBay and go look and everywhere else. You can't buy these. All right. These have to be given to you, or you're straight up special operations from the get-go, or you're recruited. All right. You don't just get that. So it goes back to be careful when you're trying to destroy someone's life with lies, because they can destroy yours with the truth. Probably be careful what you wish for. As President Trump told the deep state, be careful what you wish for. All right. So special operations, the undesirability. Was this fun? No, it's not fun. The gas, the food, right, and the drag out process. But if you are studying and reading and studying and comprehending what you're supposed to know, then your peace and your calmness and your overall, whatever you want to call it, your tranquility, whatever word you want to use, you'd be all right, because you would also become a part of this in another manner, in a spirituality way especially. You'd be that wheat doing what you're supposed to be doing for the future. You'd be teaching your family and friends what's going on, no matter what they said about you. Hey, if you know, pull your weight. If you know, a lot of patriots are doing that because they're reading and studying, right? But 45-47 is a military operation, which means it requires military personnel of all kinds. When you're a retiree, you automatically fall under it because of oath and what that oath reads and what it entails. It specifically says that I will obey the what? Officers and the president. But that says what? According to what, though? The president and officers appointed over me according to what? Regulations, which would be branch regulations, and then the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is military law. That's Title 10, Chapter 47. All right? And see, the other thing that will show you is someone like me. I'm not sitting here. You can look at my notes. I don't have Title 10, Chapter 47 on there. If it could get it to zoom in on there. I don't have Title 10, Chapter 47 on there. I know it. It's right here. So you can tell the people who are looking in the screen and they're reading from notes, or they memorize it because they sound more robotic. And it's like President Trump showed you when he'd go off script, off the teleprompter. He said, isn't it nice to have a president who doesn't have to read from a teleprompter? You know why? Because we know it right here. We're authentic. We're real. So even if you don't have people out there trying to read it off a script, if you got people out here yelling at President Trump and calling him a name and calling him a trafficker and calling him a pedophile and calling him all these things, you're missing the operation. All right? The whole thing's been an operation. Now, it was planned long before that right there. This has been in plan a long time. Now, naturally, the most natural part of this is you would say, well, why didn't they do it before? That's a good question. but at the same time, everything has to align. And where a lot of people don't have the military mentality, the military mentality is this, and I've said it over and over and over. If you're presented with an equation, and the equation was simple, we can do it this way or we can do it this way. But if it's one equation says we're going to lose 10,000 people, we're going to lose 1 million people, but we're going to save 100 million people. Or the flip it with that would be was we're going to lose 100 million people, but we're going to save 100,000. Which one you go with? It's pretty simple. So many people out there, I'll get messages to this day, people are dying, how can you do this, how are you guys playing this chess game, and this, that, and other. People die every day. Last I checked, the Bible says you're not getting out of this world alive. There's a time appointed to man. If you're focused on death, you're not living life. And you're not pulling your weight where you're supposed to be pulling your weight on the living capacity. You're focused on death and the negativity. People die every day. People die in automobiles. People die in plane crashes. People die everywhere, every day. So you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You either save 100 million and lose 100,000, or you save 100,000 and lose 100 million. With some of your attitudes out there, you would save 100,000 and lose 100 million because of what you think you've read and studied on a .org or a .net or some guy that sounds better or some girl that looks better and they deliver more and they're not as brash and they're not as rude and they're not as mean and they're not as... You're so focused on that stuff that you forget operators don't care about your feelings. Screw your feelings. If you're receiving it that way, then you've got something that you're receptive. Your receptatories are receiving it, going, oh, that hurt. Well, it hurts for a reason, because truth hurts, right? What guys like me are put here for is show you, if you want to know what's going on, there's a back plan, meaning here's the laws, here's the orders, but they require strategies and tactics interwoven in between them for you to comprehend the law and comprehend the order. And why did they do this? And why did they do that? Why did they choose to do it this way? I'm showing you. But see, it shows people's belief in what? Military. It shows that you really don't believe in military if you're getting negative or offended or mad, or you start accusing somebody. If you're an influencer out there, you start accusing somebody of something because you don't understand it. So you just go right off the deep end. That old saying, if you can't whip them, join them, that's what you do. And you're going to end up exposing yourself, and you didn't have to, because people like me are still going to be here because I have credentials, all right? And I'm part of this operation, low man on the totem pole, but I'm a part of it, right? And my job is to help you. The undesirability, and I'm going to read all this straight out of the Law of War Manual again. You go to Google, type in Law of War Manual, pull up the actual media.defense.gov, and go to page 811 on the PDF, the little black bar that goes across. All right, it'll say a number out of 1,254 pages. See, there's another thing. 1,254 pages. Most of these people out there accusing President Trump of all these things and yelling at Tom Homan and yelling at Hegseth and yelling at people like me, they haven't read a single word from a single sentence, from a single paragraph of a single anything. And this is just one. All right, page 811. Military government is the form of administration by which an occupying power exercises governmental authority over the occupied territory. The necessity for such government arises from the failure or inability of the legitimate government to exercise its functions on account of the military occupation or the undesirability of allowing it to do so. Now that means, broken down in layman's terms, it says the failure of the legitimate government. For the people out there that thought, quote unquote, Joe was real, that would have been the quote unquote legitimate government, because that's what people perceive out there. They thought that was the perception. Now you Republicans and conservatives and patriots that didn't know at the time, and that's okay, that 2020 was all part of this operation because Executive Order 13848 shows that with the national emergency, plus the deployment of the National Guard, first time in history for elections. All right, we'll get to that in a minute. But that alone, the laws show what's going on. But see, because it's a military occupation, a military operation, a military government, those are terms you've never seen before because the last time it happened was back in the 1940s. And my grandfather served during the most popular, up to that point, the most popular puppet government in history. We've already used these strategies before in a war. Now, World War II was a whole different spectrum, a whole different battlefield, a whole different playing field, a whole different chessboard. But you can still take strategies and tactics and put them in modern day. That's what we've always done. That's why most of the laws of war are way older than even our foundation in the U.S. I mean, this has been around for centuries. So that's saying military government is a form of administration by which an occupying power exercises governmental authority, takes over. Then it says the necessity, meaning why do we need it? So people out there, well, why would they do this and why? The necessity for such government arises, this is the reason, from the failure or inability of the legitimate government, quote unquote Obama, quote unquote Hillary, quote unquote DNC, that group of people, to exercise its functions on account of military occupation or the undesirability of allowing it to do so. Was 21 to 25 fun? Gas-wise, economy-wise, inflation-wise, eggs and food and this? No, it wasn't fun. That was the undesirability. But that goes back to what Elon said about the crossroads of civilization. We reached a place where Americans, 68%, if you walked up to the street randomly to somebody and said, name the three branches of government, they can't name them. But why are they whining, yelling, complaining? Why are they defaming, slandering, and trying to kill somebody? Why are they trying to frame somebody? Why are they trying all these things when they can't even name the three branches of government? Therefore, they don't know how Congress works. They don't know how the president works. They don't know any philosophy of our founders. They don't know any literature of our founders. They don't know any ideologies of our founders. They don't know anything. And why are you even here? So it goes back to that. Why are you even here contributing, whether you're negative or positive? Why are you contributing if you don't want to know how it works? That's ridiculous. You're still wasting your time. Even if you're a positive person, you're still wasting your time. If you don't want to know how we eliminate this and take this out and take this out, it's like President Trump said back in 2020, the cure cannot be bigger than the problem. This is all you need to know. This is the resolution right here of all these past years. But just because you individuals out there, you haven't seen justice on your time, don't mean it ain't happening. Everything is a takedown. They have drained the swamp in every capacity. President Trump, first executive order of the national emergency, Executive Order 13818. That's all your trafficking. And then he started on everything else, and it was a multitasking situation. All right, all these different executive orders that he put into place. President Trump is the first president to put a strategy into place for subterranean warfare, subterranean, underground, tunnels. All right, we have publications showing that the Army, my branch, right, way back, mainstream articles telling you that, hey, the military is training the Army's 26 and 31 brigades. Brigades pretty big. All right, 26 and 31 brigades. The Army's training for underground wars. It said for our next war will be underground in mega cities, not inside them, but beneath them. That's how it reads. Well, see, if you don't know anything about subterranean warfare, you wouldn't know anything about it. You also wouldn't know that President Trump is the first to establish an all-out strategy, like a blueprint, a manual, a publication, a thinking, and getting all the different experts in subterranean, even though we never had an actual strategy, but we've had what they call tunnel rats in the 70s. That men, brave men, who would get down to bare shorts and go down in tunnels that were, about that big, little. Crawl down in them to see where it went. Dark, no lights, also no breathing apparatuses and things of that nature. Now we have all that. I know a lot of these teams that's been down in these tunnels. All right, a lot of them. It's been an all-out kicking the you-know-what out of the deep state. Obliteration is the key word to it. They have obliterated all the tunnels. Then the the Defense Intelligence Agency in 2019 put out a publication that you can go read. It's the Iranian publication. I've been showing this for all this time, and it talks about the tunnels. Back during 2019, 2020, you told that to people, they called you a what? A conspiracy theorist. Because you believed in underground military bases, what they call DUMBs. Now they're flipping it on everything. Oh, Trump's been doing this, and Trump and Hegseth and all, they're all in on it. No, Derek Johnson, he's in on it. You are idiots. See, just a few years ago, it was the polar opposite. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. You believe in that? A retired veteran. And other veterans who operate in this. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. People would legitimately call someone who has absolutely done this their whole life and career, saving children, rescuing women, and call you a conspiracy theorist. Now it's a polar opposite. Now President Trump and everybody else is a part of it. See how this flips? It didn't flip the right way. It's supposed to flip over to go, whoa, President Trump's the first to put the strategy in place, and now we have a subterranean warfare. We have a subterranean strategy. We have all these unique teams out there that know how to get in these tunnels and operate in the pitch black darkness. So there's a strategy. It's called a military government. It was established so the continuity of government and your presidential emergency action documents, called PEDS for short, all right, 'cause that's a long acronym when it's obviously set out. But President Eisenhower, very key, President Eisenhower was not only president, he was a 5-star general. We've had only 8 5-star generals and admirals post or after the Civil War. He was one of them. Rare. He was a supreme commander. Supreme of all the commands. Supreme commander. And he established the continuity government and then the presidential emergency action documents. But they go together. You don't separate them. Because continuity government that's the federal government side, continuity of the government. And then your presidential emergency action documents were your executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, and treaties of the military. They all require the executive branch. They all require the president. And there's 4 ways, only 4. You've heard me say it. There's only 4 ways the military pairs with federal, period. And that's those. Executive orders, proclamations, national emergencies, and treaties. Now, this book right here is very key if you'll buy it. It's real cheap on Amazon. And it's not a hard read. And matter of fact, the lettering is actually, it's really small. You might need a magnifying glass depending on how old you are in your eyes. But this right here it's not a hard read. And this tells you in here that there's 3 different kinds of military jurisdiction. But the military law supersedes constitutional everything. Because we were first. We were established first. And that is why when I do the rundown here, which I'm about to do again, in 2016, what are the odds that unconventional warfare, special operations, unconventional warfare, puts out a new publication? One word changed in it. One word changed in it. From 1966, the Pyramid for Revolution changed in 2016 when President Trump was on the campaign. All right, that was April 2016. May 2016, the more liberal Supreme Court, out of nowhere, clarifies in the Military Justice Act of 2016, which was passed in the National Defense Authorization Act of 2017. Who became president in 2017? Okay, so it was passed in December 2016 for the 2017 fiscal year of the National Defense Authorization Act, which would be what? Your what? Defense budget. Your money for the military. Your money for the commander and his military. So the Supreme Court, who had Ginsburg, more liberals, the more liberal Supreme Court is all of a sudden clarifying that military law and military courts are separate from federal? Why would they do that randomly out of the blue? If I don't know what I know, which that's not possible, but if I didn't know, why would they just randomly go, hey, by the way, we need to clarify before the most popular man on the planet who's going to use the military in every aspect, who's going to call back veterans voluntarily and involuntarily, who's going to give them opportunities in a military government by his nominations, which is the original plan of the Presidential Emergency Action Document and the continuity government, the military government aspect of it. That's the full blueprint. That is exactly what Eisenhower established, was the military government would be businessmen who are very successful businessmen and veterans. What is President Trump's nominations? Very successful businessmen and women and all special operations veterans. Matter of fact, he just nominated a colonel the other day, a female colonel. She's not only a businesswoman, but she's a colonel. Her husband was what? Delta Force. The guy, and I don't call him that. Happy birthday to him, by the way, yesterday. But the guy, one of the colonels who forwarded this book, both books, former deputy commander of Delta Force. Do you know what the deputy commander is, ladies and gentlemen? The guy above him was the full commander of the whole Delta Force. See, so when you hear people out there accusing President Trump of things and they're a former right or they're a former Republican or call themselves a Republican or anything of that nature, and then they attach me into it, you might want to know what a Delta Force commander is and special operations. Yeah, I mean, it's really that simple. So there's strategies out there. And then so this book here, very key in telling you that, and it outlines, how and why. And why will we come to a place in history where we would need a military government? The undesirability. No, it's not been fun for a lot of people. No, it hasn't been desirable. But we came to this place where all the deep state has a lot of people tricked by the same verbiage. They use the terms laws. They use the terms orders. They use the term constitution. They use the term proclamations. They use all the same language. So naturally, when people hear laws and orders, most people have heard it so long that they don't want to believe this is an operation by laws and orders. The key with laws and orders is the law has to be supportive of the foundation and the Constitution, and the order must reflect that as well. But then also, the whole thing, again, has to be enforced. It's all about the enforcement. What you witnessed from 2016 back, no matter how old you are, you never saw the laws and orders enforced the way they were supposed to be enforced. They use this as manipulation, psychological manipulation. They do a few things, sure, because they didn't want to lose their balance, but they established their own quote-unquote democracy. We're not a democracy. Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, we're a republic. So see, there's things that people don't realize, and how do you apply it? How do you make this applicable? So there's an operation. The 45-47 is, instead of pausing everything, especially for patriots, all right, patriots, Republicans, conservatives, instead of getting to January the 20th, 2021 and going, all right, pause. We know you think that there was a election rigging in 2020 and blah, blah. But guess what? There's a strategy that we can use. It's called a military government. It's called a military occupation. It's called a continuity of government. It's called a government in exile, a puppet government, and it's all lawful. Instead of pausing and stopping the whole world and telling you and educating you, we can't do that. You know why? It would tell the enemy what's going on. But there's a strategy. Instead of 8 years straight out the gate, and then whatever would come after that, depending on if that would have been the way they went with it, they didn't. There's a strategy there. We put President Trump in 4 years. We have this strategy and tactic called a government in exile and a puppet government. It's all unconventional warfare. It's all outlined. We're going to put him in, pull him back, government in exile, puppet government, military, heavily operations. They were annihilating everything during that time period. Then, your other visual, put President Trump back in. This starts the restoration phase. And you heard him say this in October 2024. The Great Liberation starts November the 5th. The Great Restoration starts January the 20th. Restoration, ladies and gentlemen, is a word directly related to a military government in the land of law warfare. So it's the land warfare that this book talks about right here. This book tells you, see the title again, Military Government and Martial Law. This book tells you that the law of war and the law of land warfare takes precedent and supersedes the Constitution. And in our military law, it specifically tells you in military law and precedents, which is stated in this is what I'm reading from in the Law of War Manual, is the military law and precedents excerpt down here. It specifically tells you that the Constitution supports military laws. You hear the verbiage there? See, law, the reason why law is very important is it's a written doctrine. It's a written discipline. It's not verbal. Now, it can be verbal, but it's written. Law is mainly written. And when lawyers go to the reference books, that's what they're pulling back, a reference. And that's how you tell if they're abusing law or not. You got to go read it yourself. You're a lawyer just as much as they are. You don't practice it. That's why you got to read it and study it yourself. Our military laws specifically outline, and constitutional now, but it says that the Constitution supports the military law. It don't say military law supports the Constitution. It says the Constitution supports military law. Now go back to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 14 of the United States Constitution. And what's it say about the Congress doing what? The laws of what? In the military. So all these years from 1787 all the way up, all these years in military law and Constitution, amendments, etc., to military verbiage, law, war, everything. It says what? The Constitution supports military law, and that military law supersedes the Constitution. This is why the liberals and the Democrats, the rats, that's why they've lost their everlasting minds, because we're taking all their verbiage and using it against them. It's so genius if people would realize what's going on. We're taking all their abuse and enforcing it as it's prescribed on paper. That don't mean that we're going to have this in the future. That's why all these people out there with this Israelis topic, you're looking foolish because you don't know military strategies and tactics. And this has nothing to do with the future. This is an operation for what's going on right here. Now, I'm going to read the 3 different kinds of military jurisdiction. Because if you read this book just on the topic, you would think that martial law is the last martial law. There's 2 forms of martial law. I'm going to read those to you. I've read these before, but we're going to read it now in a different context. There are under the Constitution 3 kinds of military jurisdiction. One to be exercised both in peace and war. Another to be exercised in the time of foreign war without boundaries of the United States, or in time of rebellion and civil war within states, in time or in states or districts occupied by rebels treated as belligerents. All right. And third, to be exercised in a time of invasion or insurrection within the United States of America, the limits. So see, it tells you 1, 2, and 3. Then let's talk about the 3 different kinds. So you got to apply that last line where it says the third in time of invasion or insurrection, or during rebellion within the limits of the states, maintaining adhesion to the national government when public danger. So the first is called military law. Even though military law is its own discipline as well, you got to separate it. That don't mean military law, the law. Military law is another form. It says, as found in acts of Congress prescribing rules and articles of war. The second is military government, superseding as far may be deemed expedient the local law, and exercised by the military commander under the direction of the president with the express or implied sanction of Congress. Now watch this, the third one. So let's go back up, and it says, the third to be exercised during a time of invasion or insurrection within the limits of the United States. Well, let's read the third one. Martial law proper. Not regular martial law, martial law proper. Martial law proper, ladies and gentlemen, read the book, but you can just Google this. Google, what is martial law proper? Or what's the difference in martial law and martial law proper? Just Google that. Martial law proper is explicitly with national emergencies and threats to national security. Well, our founders labeled the president the guardian of what? National security. That's Article 2 of the Constitution. The president's sole role and duty is your safety, your well-being, your peace. No invasion, no insurrection. That is the president's sole role, because that's why he is the commander of the Army and the Navies. And he can say, hey, we're being invaded. Well, I got the guys to take care of that. It's that simple. So watch this. Martial law proper, it's called into action by Congress or temporarily when the action of Congress cannot be invited, and in the case of justifying or excusing peril by the president in times of insurrection or invasion or of a civil or foreign war within districts or localities where ordinary law no longer adequately secures public safety and rights. What did President Trump say starting March 2020 all the way up? All the way up. You know that song? All the way up. From March 2020, President Trump has told you what? In every speech, we've been invaded. We've been invaded. We were invaded. It was an invasion. An invasion. Those are proclamations now 6 years old, ladies and gentlemen. And he's been consistent with it. Then listen what it says. Called into action by Congress or temporarily. Remember the other day? Remember all the validation I got about resolution? They started talking about the War Powers Resolution Act. Who's the only podcaster, and I'm not a podcaster by trade, but who's the only one that's been talking about the War Powers Resolution Act? Why are they all of a sudden talking about the War Powers Resolution Act? So when you apply this, here's validation and straight up operation. From 21 to 23, so 2021 to 2023, it was displayed to you, the people, that quote-unquote Joe was a Democrat president, had a Democrat-controlled House, and a Democrat-controlled Senate. How come they couldn't make that resolution then? The resolution, the War Powers section that they're talking about was already in the War Powers Act. That is Section 1550 that I'm talking about. I've always talked about. December the 20th, 2019. It was passed in the 2020 National Defense Authorization Act, your defense budget. But guess what it says in the 1550? It's what? Temporary. It says you in codification, this is temporary, meaning it's not for future presidents. It's temporary. What did this just say? Called into Congress. Congress is the one who places it in the War Powers Resolution Act. It was a Democrat House of Representatives who voted it in under President Trump. Nancy Pelosi was the Speaker of the House. Ladies and gentlemen, they did not dissent. They didn't nay vote. They passed this defense budget. with this very specific language in there, the Section 1550, which is the congressional authority, the congressional authorization for President Trump to report the use of military to the Congress. And this says action by Congress or temporarily. The codification says temporary. And it was put there by Congress. So if Congress was real and they weren't in a partial continuity government right now, then you could ask them, excuse me, all right, so in 21 to 23, 2021, 2022, 2023, Democrat president, Democrat House, Democrat Senate, why didn't you terminate all of President Trump's executive orders then? Why didn't you resolve this resolution then? You had every authority and power if you were real. If you were a legitimate government, if you weren't a puppet government, it answers everything. It answers everything. President Trump in 2018, 2019, 2020, those were the heaviest executive orders put into place. Then you move up to December 2020, which would have been after the election. President Trump's actions there. January the 1st, a publication put out telling you reconstitution of the executive branch. So 2017 to 2021, when you study the laws and orders all invoked, and I'm not going over those tonight on this one, but when you study all the laws and orders invoked by President Trump, that was the resetting of the legislative branch. 2021 and 2025 was the resetting of the executive branch. That's why everything was executive order this, and executive directed this, and executive document this, and executive this, and it was all executive. Now we're in the resetting of the judicial branch. That's why it's judge this, judge that. Oh, judge did something yesterday. Judge this, judge that, judge this, judge, court, court, court. But see, people prove they don't really care. If they're being negative and whiny and fussy or accusing President Trump of things, you can't treat this as a every 4 years. He put a visual here, right here. So military history and our foundation shows that before we go into an absolute war, and I'm talking about a civil war, not any other kind of war, your military is the last line of defense. We're your first line of defense and we're your last line of defense. So the military government and the military occupation is the last line before we would have moved into a civil war. That is what Elon meant by the crossroads of civilization. It came to a place where the generals and the admirals, and not just our generals and admirals, but world generals and admirals, all came to a place that we got to do something or there's going to be, their families would have been killed. It would have been an all-out, brutal, you name it. And that's one thing that these low-level influencers don't understand, because they're just trying to make a buck, they're trying to make a face, they're trying to get you to comment in the comment box. When they talk trash about President Trump or talk trash about Hegseth or anybody out there doing what they're supposed to be doing, me, when they talk trash, they want you to build up their algorithms. That's what they want. They want publicity. That's all they want. But that's what they don't understand. Is in a real encampment, if they were taken hostage in a real legit situation, guess who they're going to kill first? Those little weasels. Because those weasels are the ones who will defend the evil. And the perpetrators love those weasels because they're like, hey, I shared all your posts and I talked bad about President Trump and I talked bad about this all for you and I shared all your posts. You know, and they're the first one that they kill because they're pansies. They're weak. They don't know anything. They use them as guinea pigs. And if you would understand military strategies and military tactics, you'd realize that, hey, you want the one like me who is a butthole, an a-hole, and all the other things I've been called out there, mean and brutal and this. You want one like me. I'm not here to be your boyfriend. I'm not here to be your bottle. All right? I'm here to be your instructor, your teacher. Hey, I don't care what these people are doing over here. Here's the law. Here's the orders. Here's what's going on. Here's what you need to know. I'm the disruptor. I'm the iconoclast. Right? Hey, I don't need your money. I don't have subscriptions. I sit here on my time. But I do have a position, and my purpose is to do this for you. That's what President Trump's purpose was. He's a blue-collar billionaire. He was not a military veteran, but he also wasn't in Congress. He was the neutrality that was needed to have no bias anywhere along the way with the military backing him, the generals, the admirals, and all of what we're doing in this operation. You want that guy because he couldn't be bought on the federal side. He couldn't be bought over here on this side. And then in the military, the generals and admirals that's backing him, they're okay with him not being a former general or a former admiral. And then for the people's sake, if he would have been a general or an admiral, guess what would have looked like then? It would have been an all-out coup, all right, on their part. And a lot of people, you patriots and you Republicans and conservatives, you would be okay with that because it would be truly for the benefit of ridding the evil and draining the swamp. But the other side over there, this is not a Republican operation. This is not a conservative operation. This is not a patriot operation. This is a patriot operation to get all people involved and say, hey, you've been brainwashed. You've been deceived. These people are brainwashing you. They're deceiving you. They're lying to you. They're doing this for their gain, and you're just feeding their gain. Stop. So see, it's showing people responsibility. What are your responsibility and your duties? And so many people are missing that point out there. It may not be you listening, but it's your friends and family. They're still missing it. They're going to get it. Oh, it's coming. There's some rude awakenings coming. But it shouldn't be for you. If you consider yourself a patriot, a Republican, conservative, whatever, none of this is for you. The layout, right? The operational status is for you. The laws and orders, for you. But what you see on the news, not for you. Not for you. And the laws and orders show this. This is why you hear it like a broken record. If people would study the 45-47 blueprint, they would find out that, whoa, this man, Derek Johnson and all of his colleagues, I'm 3 to 6 weeks. Well, we're 3 to 6 days, weeks, months, and years ahead of what comes out. And that's why everybody who does watch and follow, that's why they know, ladies and gentlemen. If you're brand new, that's why they already know. It's already there. Now, President Trump, here's a validation of another validation of the PEDS and the continuity of government. So President Trump on January 27th last year, he was at a speech and he said, I've signed a record number of executive actions, which would be your executive orders, that would be your proclamations, your treaties, and other documents. President Trump specifically said, I've signed a record number of 350 executive actions, and that was January 27th, 2025. If you go look on the Federal Register to this day, and you count the number from January the 20th to January 27th, if you count all of the executive orders, the proclamations, and the other documents, there's only 58 of them. Where are the other 292? Where are they? Presidential Emergency Action Documents. They're pre-drafted. They are draft classified, meaning they're not public to you yet. That is validation of the military government, of the military occupation, because that is not federal government language whatsoever. Presidential Emergency Action Documents are not federal. Those are the military's ways of pairing with the federal. And it's that simple. So it goes back to, again, quote-unquote Joe. 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies by President Trump from 2017 to 2021 was continued 4 years in a row by quote-unquote Joe. So for the people that thought it was real, I'll put on that hat and say, okay, let's do that. Go back to 21 to 23. It was displayed to the world that Joe was a Democrat president, Democrat House, Democrat Senate control. How come they could not terminate all these things that they call President Trump a Nazi, a king, and a dictator over. Those 8 executive orders included funding Doge, which is funding all of the corruption. President Trump just made a post about Somalia again yesterday. What did President Trump say about Somalia in the State of the Union address? If you were listening, he said the fraud in the state of Minnesota alone connected to Somalia will give the United States of America a balanced budget. Woo! Deporting the illegal migrants, the unlawful migrants. All the executive orders for that. Then you got the executive order for terminating community, like all your, so NPR, PBS, CNN, The View is under investigation right now. No one's talking about that. Why not? Because people haven't been told to. I'm the only one talking about it because I know about it. An emergency power that comes with a national emergency is called restricting telecommunications. That's a presidential authority. In a wartime, verified wartime military government, military occupation, 47 United States Code, Section 606, the president has full authority over TV, radio, internet broadcasts. He can shut them down if he wants to. Well, what has happened with NPR and PBS? And when did they shut them down? In 2024. Oh, I thought President Trump was a former president. What was NPR and PBS? Why couldn't they get funding from the Democrats? Why couldn't they get funding from the liberals? If Obama is still around, why couldn't they save all these people? Why couldn't they terminate every single thing by President Trump with a full Democrat everything? It solves everything. Once you learn how government works and functions and operates, then you have to explain from 21 to 23 how come there was no resolution, how come they couldn't terminate President Trump using the military. That's why they're bringing up the War Powers Act. The only resolution in there was the Section 1550. December the 20th, 2019, the same day the Space Force was established. Same day the Global Fragility Act was passed. December the 20th, 2019. It's this simple. And in it, Panama Canal. We sent 4,000 Marine Corps to the Panama Canal last year. Panama Canal. What did Democrats do? What did all the Democrats and liberals do on social media? Oh, here we go. We're sending troops down to Panama. There he goes, President Trump. He's going to put us in war with Panama. He's going to put us in war with the Central America and South America. That's what they were yelling. Why would Joe continue Executive Order 13936, July 14, 2020? It was with Hong Kong. People say, what's Hong Kong have to do with Panama? What did President Trump say way back then? What did he say on the campaign trail? He said, oh, yeah, by the way, we're taking the Panama Canal back. He said, Jimmy Carter. Democrats lost their everlasting minds. President Trump was roasting Jimmy Carter the day that he died. He said Jimmy Carter sold the canal back for $1. And he said China took control of it. Then he said, guess who took actual? Hong Kong. Well, what are the odds that President Trump signed an executive order and declared a national emergency against Hong Kong in July 2020? And why would quote-unquote Joe continue that? That simple. Then, Yemen. So all the recent actions, all the actions with our military recently, and I say recently meaning last year to present day, Yemen, Venezuela, and Iran. Guess what they all have in common? They are all executive orders with national emergencies from Obama and Jimmy Carter. And so far, up to this point, in this whole podcast today, I have refrained from using the words stupid and idiot and moron and all the other terms that most people don't like because if they're hearing it. But I'm like, well, if you receive it that way, you're striking a nerve. But this is how stupid the Republican who are jumping shit with President Trump saying that he's busting the party up and he's going against his word and all these other things. This is how stupid they are. They're not ignorant. Because ignorance means you just don't know. And, hey, I can show you and you're supposed to learn. A lot of these people don't want to learn. They're stupid. They have no IQ. It's like President Trump says, we got to protect our nation's IQ. He's talking about people like me, by the way. For all of you negative Nancy's out there. He ain't talking about anybody else. He's talking about people who can quote this like I'm doing with no notes and just sitting here straight up telling you executive orders, proclamations, mass emergencies, the number, the year, the month, the day. How it works, how it all is interwoven in the full blueprint. So where were all these Republicans last year from March to May when we were airstriking Yemen? The reports and military guys know that Iranian Houthis, they took over Yemen and all these different areas. We were airstriking, bombing the hell out of Yemen. Where were all of you then? Where were all of you people yelling, well, we're not sending our children to war. My son's not going to war. Oh, I'm not. Where were you then? You weren't saying that. An airstrike is an airstrike. It has nothing to do with the region at that point. An airstrike is an airstrike. Bombing the hell out of a region is bombing the hell out of a region. It has nothing to do where it is, who it is, and where it is. Is it because you're scared of Iran? You got the greatest military in the world, and you're scared of Iran? Is it that? Because I can make you rest assured that you should have nothing to be scared of with our military. So Yemen, where were all these demanders all of a sudden? Oh, you weren't saying nothing last March to May. I didn't even see hardly anybody talk about Yemen. Somalia, we just talked about Somalia. Executive order by Obama with Somalia. We can skip it. I've already covered it. Venezuela. How come, quote unquote, Joe couldn't stop the operation with Venezuela? It was launched April the 1st, 2020. Those executive orders that President Trump signed, Executive Order 13912 and Executive Order 13919 specifically, March 27, 2020, April 30th, 2020. But in the April 30th, 2020, Executive Order 13919, where he invoked Title 10, Section 12304, 12304 is a 2-year pre-plan, strategic, pre-plan. So the executive order is back here. And in that executive order, it specifically says what? Operations, counter-narcotics operations in the Western Hemisphere. Go over to Southern Command, go to Google and type in April 1st, 2020, comma, Southern Command, enter. You'll find the article where we launched the operation. April the 1st, 2020. So how come, quote unquote, Joe, in 21 to 2023, with a full Democrat everything displayed to the public, forget that I know it's a government exile, military operation, military occupation, puppet government, forget all special operations, forget about unconventional warfare. For the people out there, how come Joe could not terminate those executive orders? And the Title 10 invocations are in an executive order, which means if that executive order is not revoked by the executive branch, the president, it's still active. And there's specific orders that don't carry over. They call it a ghost authorization. There's specific orders that don't, because it depends on who it is and what it is. If it's National Guard and Reserve components, those are not ghost authorizations. Feels so good to be right, but it ain't about being right. That's what's funny about it. Ukraine. Here's another one. So Obama had 4 executive orders. 4 executive orders. 3 in the month of March alone in 2014 with Ukraine. 1 declared a national emergency. But it used the very specific language, unusual and extraordinary threats. Unusual and extraordinary threats is a whole separate national emergency from just a regular national emergency. The unusual and extraordinary threats invokes the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The IEPA that President Trump just talked about, that the Supreme Court abused their power with. It was one section of it. It wasn't the whole thing. It wasn't the whole act of 1977. It's one section. But they're showing people are not reading. They're showing people, the American public, are not doing what they're supposed to be doing up to this point. What did President Trump tell you January the 20th, 2017? We're taking the power out of D.C. giving it back to you, the people. Well, so far, not you, the patriot, but the majority of Americans are still failing because they're still stuck to drama. And what did President Trump say? You got to give them what they want. So the longer people are drama fed, they've drugged this out because of that. And we've been able to clear out more things effectively and efficiently because of laziness. If Americans knew what they were supposed to know, it could have been a little bit quicker. So what would Ukraine be such an unusual and extraordinary threat? And this is what people hadn't listened to and hadn't made it applicable. Ukraine is not a member of NATO. So why would quote-unquote Joe be quoting Article 5 of the NATO Constitution the whole time in defense for Ukraine? They're not a member of NATO. It's real simple. They were making all these people show their guilt and their connections to these nations that we should have no part of. Now, Russia capitulated. Now, watch this. Obama also had executive orders with Russia, and they were very specific to nuclear power, very specific language to nuclear everything. Why would Obama terminate executive orders with Russia, but keep executive orders open with Ukraine? You know what they did? They played old Putin for a fool. But Putin was not the president from 2008 to 2012. That's very key. Guess what happened during that time period? The uranium one deal that President Trump said on Twitter long ago. There's your Russia scandal right there, the biggest scandal in U.S. history. Uranium one, where the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative, they received $145 million in 2010. Who was not president again of Russia? It wasn't Putin. He was prime minister, but he wasn't president. When he became president again in 2012, and then Obama terminated executive orders with Russia, but he invoked all these executive orders with Ukraine in 2014, what happened shortly after 2018? President Trump, he left the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty in the 2018. He left it. That was our treaty with Russia, nuclear. Also in 2018, Ukraine broke a Commonwealth treaty with Russia. Ooh, spicy. 2018. What else happened in 2018? A little thing called a soccer ball. Putin capitulated to President Trump. That was a capitulation. That was a visual. See, they gave you a visual of it. It wasn't just a verbal. They gave you a visual. The war started February 2014. Google will tell you that the large-scale operation started February 2022. Who did not play in the FIFA World Cup in 2022? Who was not a participant? The one team that wasn't a participant? Russia. FIFA World Cup, soccer ball, World Cup. You're going to be in a war. You're going to be taking out these biolabs in Ukraine that Victoria Nuland, who worked under the Obama administration in 2014 specifically, that secured $1 billion for the defense budget of Ukraine. That Joe Biden, the real Joe Biden, said that if they didn't fire a certain SOB, that they wouldn't get their $1 billion. Oh, well, $1 billion and $1 billion, that $1 billion to the same country, Ukraine. That adds up. All right. So Victoria Nuland, March the 8th, the anniversary was just a week ago, March the 8th, 2022, under oath, Marco Rubio asked her, after all of 2021, denying and saying that bioweapon labs in Ukraine was a conspiracy theory. What did Victoria Nuland say under oath, March the 8th, 2022? That yes, there are biolabs in Ukraine, and we're afraid the Russians are going to get them. Oh, they got them, all right. But why would Ukraine be our priority? See, this shows people's priorities as well. All these liberals out there, and Democrats, and now rhinos, whining about Ukraine. Oh, Trump said he would stop the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. He failed. Why is the Ukraine war our business anyway? It's strategy. We're eliminating everything from the deep state. Now let's get to Iran, because I'm closing with all this. I'm going back to Iran. All right, Iran. November the 18th, 1979, Jimmy Carter signed an executive order and declared a national emergency with Iran. That same executive order is active to this day. This November, that executive order, if you'll do your math, that's 47 years. Ladies and gentlemen, is that an emergency anymore? Is an emergency worth 46 plus years? Now, I like to use the number 36 years because when President Trump took action, and I say action when he took his oath and he got into presidency, 36 years, they continued their quote-unquote diplomacy. Then President Trump gets all these executive orders and it's game over. Because that's what you've been watching is game over. Every action that President Trump's taken with our military has been, especially foreign, Yemen, Venezuela, Somalia, Ukraine, Iran, depending on if it was military visuals, bombing, but especially Yemen and Venezuela and Iran. All executive orders were national emergencies from the deep state. Now, before we get through Iran, I'm going to address Afghanistan really quick. The reason why they did the Afghanistan pullout the way they did that is because when you all find out the truth, not you patriots, but your friends and family, when you find out the truth on 9/11, everything had to fall on them. Everything. That's why a puppet government has full control of civil affairs only. All right? That's why you heard President Trump in a debate with quote-unquote Joe when he said, why did he touch inflation? My inflation was essentially nothing. It was 1%. That all economists say 1% inflation is perfect. Why'd you touch it? Why'd you move it? And he said, did you notice he didn't take out my tariffs? Tariffs are presidential authority. The tariffs were put in place January 23rd, 2018. How come they couldn't terminate a single tariff with Democrat President, Democrat House, Democrat Senate? So all these things show you you're watching a military operation. Was it desirable? No. So let's go to Iran. Well, we know for a fact that Jimmy Carter declared this national emergency. And all these years, Iran chanted death to Israel, death to America, death to Israel, death to America. I've never heard Americans chant death to Iran. I've never heard Americans chant death to anyone. I've never heard Israel chant death to Iran or death to anyone. So now you got to go into strategy. Let's go back to the dash here. That's a visual for you. That's your value. It's visual validation. Did you not hear Congresswoman Boebert from Colorado? Did you not hear the video where she said, when it's all said and done, Joe Biden's only going to be known as the dash right here. And President Trump used him. Used. Puppet government. Used. It's a strategy. We used a strategy. And all the negative stuff had to fall on their trash that they put on all of you, the people, from 2016 prior. You yelled, drain the swamp. Why don't you want to see the swamp drain? You Republicans, you conservatives, you rhinos, you yelled, drain that swamp. Do you not want corruption gone? Do you love corruption? I mean, that's your only alternative. You either love corruption and you're mad that President Trump's getting rid of corruption. Because if you want corruption gone, then there's a strategy. And you've been witnessing it. You're well into it. You're right here. You're in this four. We're not here yet. So now you got to go to this dash. Let's go to the dash again. So there's this thing called the National Defense Authorization Acts. They're the defense budgets. All right? Well, that's your defense budget. That's the money that the military uses. In 21 to 2025, the NDAAs outline Iran to a T. For example, 2022, 2023, and 2024, it specifically shows the number 60% in those for Iranian enrichment. Now let's go back to Obama. Obama's great deal with Iran that President Trump said was disastrous and it's traitorous and it's treasonous. Obama's great deal, they negotiated it July 14, 2015, and then it went into implementation January the 16th, 2016. Iran was to be at 3.67% from 2015 really, but 2016 to 2030 to the next review process. Now you have Elizabeth Warren, who is all theater, but for the people that thinks it's real, she said, "Oh, well, Iran pursued nuclear weapons again because President Trump tore up the agreement with Iran that we had in place." Okay, let's deviate really fast there. If that were true, then that would show you that Iran doesn't have your best interests. One, they don't have their own women and children and citizens' best interests, but they also don't have you, because they chanted death to Israel, death to America for 47 years. The same Ayatollah. Same Ayatollah. So why wouldn't they want to do what's right by humanity and go, hey, why do we need nuclear weapons? We don't need nuclear weapons. We don't need them. So why would they still pursue them? So now let's go back to Obama's deal. Fordo facility. Fordo facility was only supposed to have 0%. Not even 1%. Not even 1%. Fordo. So due to the International Atomic Energy Agency, what did they say? They said that Iran was at 60% on a minimum. Could be more, but 60% on a minimum. And they said Fordo had the most percent out of the percentage. So this great Obama deal was supposed to be at 3.67. And the 21, 22, 23 NDAAs, not the, it's the 22, 23, 24. They were signed 21, 22, 20. But the 22, 23, 24 fiscal years all have 60% in it. 21 don't have a percentage. 25 don't have a percentage. So 22, 23, 24 were very specific on the percentages. Now, why didn't it be like, 10% or 27% or 37%? Or why was it specific 60%? And why was it first reported in 2021 that they were at 60%? However you want to slice a pie, it's very specific to the NDAAs, which is your defense budget, which means your Department of now war, but then defense. Their budget, which means military action. So all these people out there with this all of a sudden problem military action, they don't even realize who voted yeah and who voted no. Al Green, that kept getting kicked out of the State of the Union addresses, Al Green, he voted yeah on 2 or 3 of these. He didn't even vote no. So all of these actions that are taking place in Yemen, taking place in Iran, all the airstrikes, it's all outlined in either the DO, the NDAAs, so the defense budgets, or the Memorandum of Understandings. You can't make this up. All right, so now the 2023 NDAA, specifically the 2023, no other. Not the 21, 22, 24, 25, the 23 NDAA specifically mentions Jordan, the Kingdom of Jordan. President Trump has talked about Jordan. We have heavy military in Jordan. They've been also contributing to the dome system. We have heavy activity in and out of Jordan. The Abraham Accords, specifically in the 2023 NDAA. The Abraham Accords were established by President Trump, what he calls peace in the Middle East, September the 15th, 2020. Jordan, Syria, Morocco, Sudan, we got UAE, Bahrain, all these partners, Saudi Arabia, all these partners, Egypt, all these Middle Eastern partners who are also a part of this operation. Why aren't people saying, we have so many partners that weren't our traditional allies before, now working with President Trump, working with our military. We have another organization, the MFO, that also operates out of Egypt. Go look up the MFO.org. Legit organization. They help establish peace in the Middle East as well. A lot of them are former military, but it's an organization. And then also the 2023 NDAA, the only one from 21 to 25, that dash. The 2023 is the only NDAA that mentions assassinations. And guess who it's tied to? Iran. So if Joe Biden was real, and he wasn't, it was a puppet government, government exile, all by law, military strategies, military tactics. But if Joe Biden was real for the people out there, they would have to explain how come the quote-unquote president, the quote-unquote commander-in-chief, didn't even know what's in the defense budget. Because the report showed in the next year that Iranian officials were trying to kill U.S. officials. Former U.S. officials. John Bolton, Mike Pompeo, and then it said President Trump. So how was it that the 2023 NDAA mentioned assassinations but not 21, 22, 24, 25? And how was it displayed to you, the people out there, that quote-unquote President Trump was quote-unquote assassination attempts in July and September 2024? But back here in the 2023, it talks about assassinations. Not in 24, not 25, in 23. And how come in special operations must I remind you of the spearhead here that you can't buy these anywhere? All right. Must I remind you that President Trump on the campaign trail in 2016, before the month before the liberal Supreme Court clarified military courts and military laws are separate from federal courts and federal laws, must I remind you that the unconventional warfare pocket guy of special operations put out a new publication, and on the Revolutionary Pyramid, one word changed. One word. From 1966, the original, to 2016, 50 years there. One word changed. Why did it go from agitation in 66 to assassination in 2016? Knowing what was about to follow. Strategy. After that sentence on the pyramid, it says, forming favorable public opinion. Well, did you, Republicans, you love President Trump, don't you? It formed a favorable public opinion. Even Democrats and liberals were, oh gosh, no, we don't have agreements here, but we don't agree to assassinate the president. Go read the 3 prescriptions of the term assassination in the Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide. And guess what you're going to find in there as well? Puppet government. Government exile. And you're going to find a presidential finding, meaning the president. And what did all the laws show? What did this say here? The 3 different kinds of laws, jurisdictions, says military proper. When the action of Congress cannot be invited, and in case of justified or excused in peril by the president. All of our military laws, president, 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 because he is the guardian of national security. He is the guardian of your national security. Then 2025 NDAA, which will be your 2025 fiscal year, but it was signed December 2024. Not one word of Iran mentioned in the 2025 NDAA. Not one percentage mentioned in the 2025. Not one uranium mentioned. Which means if it's over here in 22, 23, and 24, and then President Trump has all these other orders in place, And then the resolution, the War Powers Resolution Act. Way back there, December the 20th, 2019, Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. Temporary, put there. Just a few weeks ago, you watched all of Congress, quote unquote Congress, they could not resolve the War Powers Resolution. They don't have to resolve any other thing in there because a lot of those are not actual reporting periods. The Section 1550 was put into the War Powers Act via the NDAA, and it says it's temporary in there. That's what they were trying to resolve to you, the people. But that ain't real. They're under a partial continuity government. Executive Order 13961, December the 7th, 2020. That's your continuity government invocation. On January the 19th, 2025, quote-unquote Joe partially revocated that executive order. Partially means we're partially in a continuity. But why would quote-unquote Joe, if he were real, why wouldn't he terminate a national emergency or a continuity government or anything January the 20th, 2021? Why would you wait till the last 24-hour day of a presidency to partially revoke? Why wouldn't you just, if there wasn't a continuity government, why don't you just terminate the whole thing? This is so simple. It's so easy if people just knew the strategy. But what did President Trump do December the 2nd, 2025? He put out on a post, he said, all of the executive actions, pardons, documents, anything have been hereby terminated. All of quote-unquote Joe. All been terminated. Ladies and gentlemen, if that would have been real in a real-life scenario and a president, any president, would have terminated 4 years worth, 8 years worth of a president's executive actions total, executive orders, proclamations, national emergencies, treaties, all right, pardons, documents. We're talking about mass judiciary chaos. But what did President Trump also say on the post? He said, they have no legal effect. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you might need to know a little Latin. All right, don't let an old cowboy, country boy from the South school you on big terms. You might need to study a little bit more. What does no legal effect mean in Latin? Void ab initio. What's that mean? What's that translate to? Never existed. President Trump said no legal effect, which in Latin means void ab initio, which means never existed. Now let's get to Israel. Israel, a lot of people, you're looking atrocious. Let's just be honest. You look like the Romans who crucified Jesus. You know, the Romans witnessed all of Jesus' miracles and healings and everything. They still crucified him. You look like them. If you're whining and complaining over Israel, you look like them. Now, I don't have a problem with you liking or loving or hating or disliking. It don't matter. You can have your opinion. But you're not looking at the future. You're thinking that President Trump's actions with Israel and Iran is for the future. It's not. This is where you're going wrong. It's for this. We're still right here. We're not here. We're not here. We're not here. We're right here. And you doing this out there, especially if you're an influencer, you're exposing yourself. You're showing anyone who is reading, studying, comprehending, empowering themselves, you're nobody and you shouldn't be, because you're actually portraying a seditious action. Because under military law and military government, your First Amendment goes away, Hoss, or Hosses, if you're a female. Your First Amendment goes away. In a military government defined by military law and military occupation, which if you'll just go read and study those, you will see we're most definitely in that by law. Your First Amendment goes away because what did this say right here? What does this book tell you? That military law supersedes constitutional everything? So your actions out there, all of you accusing President Trump of things and accusing me of things, false accusations, guess what you're doing? You're creating sedition. That's sedition. It's treason. And It depends on how far we go with this. A lot of you just don't know that you don't know. You influencers out there, you don't know that you don't know because you're what? You're lazy, you're complacent. You say you want to do right. You say you want to be a mouth. You say you want to be a voice. But you don't know anything of what's going on right here. This is not just a visual. This is not a feel-good. This is a military operation. And that's why you could be obstructing. Depending on how big you got, you could be obstructing. And I'm going to tell you what, you step into a military court, it ain't going to be like no civilian court. Oh, I'd rather be judged by 12 than... No, not in a military court, it wouldn't be. Depending on what you do and what you say and what your actions could be, you wouldn't want to see that. So all these people out there, what you're failing to see is this one thing. Well, two things. One, this is an operation. All laws and orders outline it. But heavily military, obviously, and then martial law, etc. Martial law, if you'll go look at the official website, I've posted it many times for you to read it. The official website, official military and government. The president don't have to tell you when he declares martial law. It does not need a formal declaration. It depends on what? Strategy. The invasion. President Trump told you in 2016, never again will we voice to the public what's going on with our military, meaning forecast it. What I show you has already happened. Everything that I talk about has already happened. You can see it with your eyes and read it, study it, comprehend it if you want to. But never again will we forecast to the public what's going on. We're not going to tell you, hey, we're coming into Iran in 2 years, by the way, we're going to get you. So a lot of people are not seeing that this is an operation. And guess what you did? You, the people out there who are whining and complaining and demanding all of a sudden, and the ones out there who are dissenting over this Israel thing, guess what you're doing? You're showing your ignorance. That's what you're doing. Because your taxpayer dollars went into Israel. Your taxpayer dollars built up their military all the way back to 1998. Which it goes back to what I said earlier. Hey, show us your screenshot proof that you've been yelling against Israel your whole time. Because consistency matters. If you got screenshot proof that you've been against Israel on your post all the way back to since Facebook became public for you old people who got on there, God love you. But for all you people, it started in college first. The University of Alabama was one of the first colleges to get it because they had a big greet system. And they needed it to be popular. You had to have an EDU address from an official college to even be on Facebook. Then they went public and allowed all of you people to turn Facebook into political book. So I can talk. We can do this if you want to go. Let's take the gloves off and let's go. Present your material that you have posted on social media long before President Trump that you hate Israel and you can't stand Israel and you hate Christians and you hate Zionism and you hate... Show your proof. I'll post you up. I'll say, hey, here's Susie from Timbuktu, South Carolina, and here's her screenshots. It won't be AI generated because I'll run it through a generator and I'll be able to tell if you faked it or not. Well, show me your proof because you ain't got none. None of you have any. All right. So that means you got to go to what? Military strategy, not opinion, not your little butt hurt feelings. And not your little stomachs, and not because you look like a Roman who's crucified Jesus, not because you hate Christianity and you hate Christians and you, none of that. Let's go to strategy. I don't give a dang if you're atheist or Buddhist, what you are. That you can still be that and be a patriot. I know plenty of people who love the nation, but they're not Christians. All right? No problem. All right? I'm not here to preach. Let's go to military strategy. See, a lot of people would have us in war like that, boy. You'd rip the rug out. They'd rip the rug out so quick. I hate Israel. Right is. Whoop, rug out. And you're not listening to me. I'm not saying I support Israel either. See, people don't really listen. I'm not saying I support it. I'm just showing you how to use Israel from a strategic aspect. What President Trump did in 2017 and 2018 and 2019, he went to all these nations. Not as a regular president, Ladies and gentlemen, if he went to as a regular president, it would have been game over because of the deep state. But remember Hillary? Remember Hillary saying that President Trump don't have the temperament to deal with these nations? Remember that? North Korea? She said he'll have us in a what? Nuclear war with North Korea? What happened? President Trump ended up being the first sitting president to walk into where? North Korea. And then Saudi Arabia, the sword dance. India, Modi, down in Texas, President Trump, of all places, Texas, right? And then also Japan, President Trump handed the trophy. The emperor is supposed to hand it over. President Trump handed the trophy. He was the first foreign official of anyone, not just U.S. president. He's the first foreign official to walk in the forbidden city of China in 500 plus years. That's why all these people talking about China. We're not going to war with China. Come on, people. This is all a military operation. All of those capitulations are still in effect right now. All of them. So all of our allies, and allies we never had before, came on board. Bahrain, Sudan, Morocco, Egypt, and all these different places. The Abraham Accords, right? Turkey, the old Ottoman Empire. Like all these Christians out there, oh, it's the end of the world. No, it's not. The book of Revelation says that Persia, the Ottoman Empire, Russia, and China will align. They're not aligning. Persia is Iran. Ottoman Empire is Turkey. They're not aligning. Turkey is the one that President Trump has had at the Trump Tower and Mar-a-Lago during the time period he was supposed to be a quote-unquote former, which would have been a Logan Act violation, Title 18, Section 953. The same thing that Joe and Obama used on General Michael Flynn. Remember during the 2020 debate, he said it was you, Joe. It was you who recommended the Logan Act on Michael Flynn, on General Flynn. It was you, Joe. They tried a coup on us. It was you, Joe. You tried a coup on us. You tried a coup. We have it all. We've called it all. Ye of little faith. All of you, I don't care if I ended up with one follower. You know what's going to happen? Old Derek's going to be right because it's not about Derek. This is a military operation. And so many people out there are distracting you because they're wolves in sheep's clothing. They're nobodies. They're low people trying to distract you, deter you from actual truth, from empowerment, to the actual things that make up the whole operation. It was you, Joe. It was you who recommended the Logan Act to Obama to use on Michael Flynn, on General Flynn. It was you, Joe. We have it all. We caught it all. And you people out there, you rhinos, how despicable are you? You're the worst. Liberals are expected. Democrats are expected. You rhinos, you should be deported first. You better hope to God I'm never president. I will deport you. No questions, I will be a dictator. I will deport you. And if you falsely accuse people of things and you're just a little influencer, not only would you not have a platform anymore, I'd deport you and I'd also send you to prison for X amount of years for sedition and treason. And then I leave it up to the people to decide, the patriots decide, hey, what do you think? What do y'all want to do to them? And that's what's taking place right now. The whole thing is setting up for the resetting of here's what's going to happen in the future if you commit this crime, if you commit this crime, if you commit this crime. Charlie Kirk, this shooting that just happened in Austin, Texas, this shooting. You know what no one's still talked about to this day? The blood, the goriness. Why are they showing this on TV? Why couldn't they blur that out? Why didn't they? See what happens? Watch the comment box and slide up on Charlie Kirk. Watch it. Watch the after comments when I post this. Watch it. They won't talk about that. No, what they'll do is, oh God, Charlie Kirk, I love Charlie Kirk. I'm not talking about loving, liking, disliking, hating, whatever. That's not the topic here. The topic is, what did they show you? Why didn't people talk about the blood, the goriness? Why didn't they talk about that? Because it wasn't. And if you run that original video through any AI generation video, guess what it tells you? It's not real blood. It's not. I took a snake that I killed a couple months ago, ran it through AI generation, posted it for you. What did it say? Real blood. So AI generation on multiple generators, Oh, look at that. Freezing up. Freezing up on Instagram. Why? Because I'm telling the truth here. It's not real. You know why it's not real? It's because of laziness, complacency, and people out there who don't know strategies and tactics. See, what people are not realizing is that you are going to see justice. Oh, you're going to see justice. It's pausing again. Oh, you're going to see justice. They're getting people ready for what they're going to see. Because people weren't talking about the blood, the gore, none of that. People went straight to emotions, straight to feelings. You love him, like him, and Democrats ticked you off, rightfully so, if it would have been real. You know, being distasteful and disgraceful to someone who would have lost their life, that's bullcrap. But it's not real if you listen to strategy and tactics, right? So the Democrats, they went off the deep end for sure, right? And the liberals, the real ones out there that are still on social media. But you shouldn't have been reacting to it because what they're showing you is strategy and tactic, what's coming. They're getting people ready for what? Executions, right? Because we have to reset the world on here's what you get for this. Here's what you get for falsely accusing someone of something that's absolutely false. Here's what you get for sedition. Here's what you get for treason. Here's what you get for crimes against humanity. Here's what we have to reset all these because why? The last person who ever got hit with treason visually for the public was like 1950 something. So all these years they've gotten away with it. So all of you little pansy asses out there, you need to calm your little tits down and just wait. If you're a patriot, you're a Republican, just wait. It's coming. Chill out. Relax. It's okay. If you believe in this man, you got to stick with it. If you call yourself a warrior and you jump ship, you're not. If you call yourself a patriot, you jump ship, you're not. Stick with this. This is not over yet. The 47 is not over with yet. Chill the you know what out. Just relax. We got this. But it also shows what you feed yourself. Like my grandparents used to say, an idle mind's a devil's workshop. But if you feed yourself all the wrong things, you're also going to be walking around a parrot that nobody wants to talk to because you're just blabbing a bunch of stuff that's not true, it's not accurate, it's not strategy, it's not tactic, it's not lawful, it's not anything. Just because you want it to be. So what President Trump is doing and the military is doing is using our allies that also had their hands in the cookie jar with the deep state. So all of you who hate Israel, okay, great, but watch this strategy. What you do is say, hey, look, when President Trump went in all these nations and they capitulated, capitulation meant, all right, you got us. We don't want any beef with you. We know how big your military is. We don't want any beef. You tell us what you want us to do. Simple. So President Trump, when he became president, he already knew this because of generals and admirals because it's an operation. But by the people that don't know that, let's just put it in layman's terms. When President Trump became president, he became privy to everything. Every order, every law, every agreement, every quote-unquote diplomacy by the deep state. That's why Hillary lost her gasket way back in 2016. They deleted that video. All of you patriots know this. They deleted it. She lost her marbles. And she said, he's going to hang us all. Yeah, probably so. Right? So just because you haven't seen it yet don't mean it's going to happen. But if you're an influencer out there and you're losing your marbles and you're losing your patience and all this, well, you're not really an influencer. You're not cut out for the job anyway, because that's not your role and your duty in the first place. You're not even a part of this. You've been gifted the gift of internet, and your media blew up, or your social media, okay, great for you, boo-boo. But some of us have badges. Some of us can actually prove we're actually in this operation. All right, and I'm not knocking people for trying and being a voice out there, but when you start saying things, you're going to expose yourself, and you don't have to. So this whole Israel thing has really opened a can of ignorance out there. So you're the people. Here's where military strategy comes in. All of President Trump's capitulations. Now Israel. Now yes, your traditional Christian in the United States of America, they're going to quote Israel from the Bible, and they're going to show you Jerusalem from the Bible. They're going to show you all these things, right? And Israel is dated way back. All right, that's why I tell people there's some things that you shouldn't talk about. our founders said there's two things that people should never lose friendship over. Our founders, plural, unanimously in their writings, there's two things that people should never lose friendship over: religion and politics. Look at where we are in the day. Look at the people who absolutely will just destruct you with their words and their thoughts because you have a different thought and you have a different whatever it is. Now, what I do to you is say, look, you can think what you want, you can have your opinion, you can have that, but there's a blueprint in place. This blueprint is for everybody. It's the resetting of all of our three branches. It's the resetting of the world and the alignments and everything, what they call the global alliance. Well, it's a resetting of that. It's not what all these Republican pundits are spewing out. There's none of that. All these Republicans and all this Fox News still, all that, that's theater. If you really want to know what's going on, you got to get to what President Trump's using. But it's heavy strategy and heavy tactics because it's not government everything. Everything President Trump has used in language and verbiage is all military. It's not federal government language. It's law of war manual. I'm sitting here looking at the law of war manual seal right in front of me. It's all law of war manual. All of it. And every aspect is under the puppet government and military government. So Israel, what you do to Israel, this is already shown to you, whether you've applied it yet or not, this is what they've shown to you. What you do to Israel is say, look, here's what's happened. That's why Netanyahu had to look like a kid in a candy store. A little fat kid goes in a candy store and you tell him, hey, we got this big cart here. Here's a scooper for every candy in here. You can have whatever you want. If I went to a candy store today and someone said, you can have whatever you want, I'm going to look like, oh. That's what Netanyahu did when President Trump did what? What did he do in 2017 that people weren't paying attention to? He declared Jerusalem capital of Israel. No president's ever done that before. They had talked about doing it, but they never done it before. Now, there's a rabbi out there right now named Jonathan Cahn. I highly recommend listening to him. All of you people think you're experts on Israel. You're not. Go listen to Jonathan Cahn. And Jonathan Cahn can lead you to a few others out there, but there was a blueprint years ago, and this has been verified. Now, I'm not going to break it down in its entirety. I'm just going to give you some of the bigger pieces of it. Numbers matter, years matter, God's timing matters, not our timing. This is a godly operation, it's a spiritual warfare, and then it's an information warfare. That's why you have people out there looking atrocious and don't have to. It don't bother me. You call me everything under the sun, I'm still accurate. My books are still number one, they're time-stamped, but they reflect our military. They're not for me, they're for our military. They're for me and my future military, but they're not for anything else but that. But this blueprint was in place years ago by this rabbi. And I think it's like Judah ben Samuel, something like that. But you can go look this up. Jonathan Cahn and a few other the rabbis talked about it. But this is so accurate. And John Hagee talks about it. Down in San Antonio, Texas, John Hagee. He's talked about this outline. All right? And watch the math on it. So a rabbi way back in 1217, the Magna Carta was written in 1215. So, and our military law mentions the Magna Carta. All right, so way back in 1217, this particular rabbi, right, he said that there's these jubilees that will be accounted for in history. But you won't know them by the year and the date. You'll just know when it happens, like these things that'll happen. He said when the Ottoman Empire, which is now Turkey, but when the Ottoman Empire regains its territory, they'll reign, all right, for X amount of years. Well, a jubilee is 50 years, all right. So the Ottoman Empire regained their territory, dominion, however you want to look at it, in 1517. 1517. Now, this rabbi had been dead 300 years, and he didn't put dates. He just said when the Ottoman Empire retakes, you count out the jubilees when they'll fall. Well, when Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated in 1914, that sprung us into World War I, all right, 1917 is when the Ottoman Empire fell. Well, that was 8 Jubilees. Now, there were some other things that they talk about in between, but I'm shortening it up for you. There were 8 Jubilees from 1517 to 1917. That's 400 years. So that took out 8 of the 10 Jubilees that this rabbi talked about way back in 1200s. And these rabbis talk about it. So there's only two Jubilees left. 50 years on to 1917 is what? 1967. What happened in 1967? June 5th to June the 10th, 1967. The 6-Day War took place. And then it tells you all over official sites that Israel took 1 million Arab men into their possession, meaning they had to convert to Christianity and fight for Israel. 1967. Well, that was 50 years. You know for a fact the 6-Day War took place. We know for a fact that Archduke Ferdinand, we know for a fact the Ottoman Empire fell. And this guy's teachings way back here talks about it. Now there's 1 Jubilee left. Uh-oh. I'm not going to get up and gyrate my hips on this one, but there's 1 Jubilee left. 50 years on the 1967 is what? 2017. When did President Trump declare Jerusalem capital of Israel? December the 6th, 2017. So many people, you look atrocious with Israel. You look like the Romans who crucified Jesus Christ. The Romans absolutely witnessed Jesus and his healings and his instructions, but his miracles and all, and they still crucified him. All because it was, not normal. What are you doing to people? What are the people out there doing to people that President Trump and me? They're trying to crucify us. And what's the Bible tell you? What's the Bible tell you? You want to be a warrior? A lot of people ain't being no warriors out there. You ain't being no warrior. President Trump don't care. Tom Homan don't care. I don't give, like Tom Homan said at CPAC, I don't give a you know what you think about me. I've been put here in my position. I'm doing my job. Anyone out there trying to defer you, anything else, they don't know what's going on. And the Bible tells you, straight is the gate, narrow is the way. Not all who say, yeah, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. You'll judge them by their fruits. Boy, I'm going to tell you what, God is God. God is God Almighty. He knows, He sees all, He knows all. He knows if you are right here. This is your temple right here. Right here. Not right here, right here. God knows you. He knows. He knows who is and who ain't. And I'm going to tell you what, Psalms 91 tells you straight up, thousands have fallen you left and right. They won't touch you. The 23rd Psalm says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, which in Hebrew context means just darkness. Yea, though I walk through darkness, I will fear no evil. For thine art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. I will prepare a table in front of your enemies. When you speak the name of Jesus and you speak the name of God and you mean it in your heart, they got to flee. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. So many people are mouth only. They're not real Christians. They're not real godly people. They're not real anything. And especially these influencers out there, they're money hungry, materialistic. Because what President Trump is doing and the military is doing, what we're doing as a whole, we took the memorandum of understanding that started in 1998, 10-year agreements that you taxpayer people put into Israel. You did it. What did I just say again a while ago? Present your evidence that you've been against Israel consistently. Present your evidence. Timestamp, present it. Because if you're yelling right now, and if you're demanding something from people that you're still not in this position, yet you're demanding it, you're a fool. By all definitions, you're a fool. Because you can't prove this, one. You're never going to prove it because Facebook ain't that old. Most of you are on Facebook. Social media is not that old, except for AOL. So you're going to have to go to your old school AOL accounts. They don't exist like they used to, and present that you've been consistent since 1998, but yet your taxpayer dollar went to Israel. Billions and billions of dollars that you spent by voting in Bush, voting in Obama. You kept voting in all your representatives. That's why like someone like Chuck Schumer don't matter to an Alabamian or to a Texan, because he's not from Texas. So a lot of you are out there reacting to people who ain't even in your state. If you'll learn how the government works, and you'll learn who you're voting in and how to talk to them, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, bingo. So see, all of this taking place, you paid for. It's your responsibility to learn what I know. And it wouldn't be so much a validation anymore. The military strategies and tactics are validations because that's unique to us in the military, and it pairs right now because this is a military government. But your executive orders and a few other things on that pair with the federal, those are things you're supposed to know. Those are things that the fundamentals as an American. You're supposed to know your three branches of government, how they function and operate, who they are, what they do, how they do it. You're supposed to know that. And then it'd be validation all the time because it's just straight up operational. It's not validational, it's operational. And so many Americans, if everybody would see that 535 members of Congress have been controlling you for the last 100 years, 150 years, we can go as far as we want to go, but people have not done what? People haven't done what? Band together. Everybody know what I know as the majority. But what do the majority look like? Yelling, kicking, cussing, screaming, fussing, griping, complaining. Don't know a single word from a single sentence, from a single paragraph of a single law. And you're supposed to know this. So you take the memorandum of understanding and you use it as a strategy. You say, all right, Netanyahu, here's the deal. We know what's been going on. We have it all. We've caught you all. You either do as you're told, be our ally in this. You're going to help us take out Iran, this regime, and all this corruption and all the Iran, the great deal that Obama made and all that bullcrap, which was not that. Obama sent $151 billion of your taxpayer money to Iran. And you have the audacity, you, whoever you are out there, you rhinos, you have the audacity to question President Trump, especially you patriots all of a sudden. You have the audacity to question President Trump when your taxpayer money went to Iran? $150 billion? $1.7 billion on cash on pallets by our United States military that he flew over. So not only did he spend your taxpayer dollar, but guess what he also did? He put the lives of these pilots and all these other uniformed service members, my brothers and sisters in arms, he put their lives in danger by sending them over there. What if Iran would have ambushed them? What if Iran would have done something they weren't supposed to do? Take them hostage. He risked the lives of that. You have the audacity to sit here and question military strategies because you don't know about it, which makes you ignorant. It makes you ignorant. You're either ignorant, dumb, or stupid. If you're ignorant, you can be educated. But if you're sitting here and you've heard me before and you're still up in arms about me and you don't like me, don't like my delivery, it's because I'm not a podcaster. I'm not an influencer. I'm a retired veteran with a badge. I'm operational. But everything that I talk about is already made public. It's already public. So you need the strategies and the tactics. Memorandum of understanding. Billions of dollars. So you say Israel, guess what? Taxpayer dollars, we're going to take that. We're going to use it. We're going to use the Americans' people dollars to wipe out our national security threat. The nation who's been chanting death to Israel and death to America all these years. That's in a national emergency executive order from Jimmy Carter. November the 18th, 1979. It's a memorandum of understanding. The other cool thing about all this is the fact that in the last memorandum of understanding that was signed in 2016, it started 2018, it runs to 2028. Guess what's in there? F-35s. What has President Trump and Dan Scavino been posting every so often all over social media? How much they love F-35s before the airstrikes? Yeah, before. What was one of the main aircraft used outside of the F-16s? F-35. And it's stated in there that your taxpayer dollar paid Israel to build and build up, and they used F-35s in this operation, your taxpayer dollar, to wipe out Iran. So you got to come to a crossroads in your life if you're out there, if you're one of these Israeli haters or whatever you are out there, you got to come to the crossroads and go, okay, here's the principle. Israel's not the principle anymore. Iran's the principle. The great deal, quote unquote, great deal with Obama. They were supposed to be at 3.67% till 2030. Why were they at 60% of the 90% needed for bombs? Does that sound like someone who's like, oh, no, we just say death to Israel and death to America all the time because they shut the internet off for their women and children. They shut the internet off. They shut the world off over there. They make the women wear their little garbs, their little burqas and all these other things and go back to the 70s. You prove you're not for women, you're not for children. You prove this because you don't want to know straight up strategy. And if you say, I didn't know about it, well, why are you talking about it? Why are you talking about something you don't know about? I don't walk around talking about stuff I don't know about. Did you hear the years? 2018 to 2028 is when that memorandum of understanding runs out. You see how ignorant influencers are? You see how ignorant they are? They're misleading people. That's sedition. In a defined military government, in a defined military occupation, in a defined military operation, that is sedition. And it should be tried as treason as well. Because they are misleading people, all because they want a name and a face, and they want you to buy some butt cream, or some arm cream, or some this. They want you to buy something. They claim they're a this, or they're a spiritual person into this. Well, Jim Jones was spiritual too. Drink the Kool-Aid. David Koresh was spiritual too. He was supposed to be Jesus. Go on out there to an asylum is what it should be called. Go on out to a confinement. Go on and follow these people out there who ain't never been in law enforcement, never been in military. Go on. Drink the Kool-Aid. But you're not a patriot. And you're not a President Trump supporter. You're definitely not a military supporter. You definitely don't love the military. Sorry. That's how that works. 2028. This is an operation. So in 2028, what will be up? 47. What's happening in Iran using Israel is not our future. It's what's taking place by what the deep state did. If you cannot understand that, you are dumber than an emergency brake on a kite. You're dumber than a spare tire on a Sea-Doo. I mean, you can't get any dumber than that. God love you, but quit. Just quit. Go hiking, fishing, golfing, sailing, traveling. Go get your mind on something else. Because you're in the way. You're obstructing real warriors, real patriots, real Americans from doing what needs to be going on. All right? It's that simple. It's draining the swamp. So, like the resolution, how come all these executive orders, all these tariffs, all these national emergencies, all these proclamations, all the Title 10, Title 32, the National Guard deployed, President Trump, how come, quote unquote, Joe could not terminate things that could be terminated? You got to think of that. If Joe was real, and if Joe was president, he'd have the same power and authority as every other president in history. How come with a Democrat president, House and Senate, nothing? The tariffs still in place? I mean, everything just transferred right over to President Trump, January 20, 2025. You already had President Trump's validation. None of it was real, never existed. It shows people's priorities. You're not listening to the president. You're not listening to your commander. You're still listening to the garbage because he still has to feed stuff out to the regular audience because they're not reading what they're supposed to be knowing. So it goes back to from the beginning. President Trump and the media have used terms occupied territory, puppet government, government in exile. They've used the term exile. They've used the term white flag of surrender. They've used the term restoration. Ladies and gentlemen, Those are not federal government anything. Those are all law of war manual terms. This book is referenced in the law of war. But this book will tell you, this book, I've done told you, the guy who wrote it, they set up under a debate of General Sherman and Colonel William Winthrop. Colonel William Winthrop is known as a guru of military law. He was a judge advocate general for just a little while, but he's the guru of military law. That's all throughout all of what Constitution supports. It tells you specifically that the law of war and the law of land warfare supersedes the Constitution. And let's go here to the military government definition. Again, military government is the form of administration by which an occupying power exercises the governmental authority over occupied territory. All right? What did President Trump say multiple times over and over? He said it in October 2024. We are an occupied country. We will soon no longer be an occupied country. The Great Liberation starts November the 5th. The Great Restoration starts January the 20th, 2025. He said starts. He didn't say finishes. He said starts, not finishes right here. The day before, January the 19th, 2025, the last 24-hour day of a quote-unquote presidency, because it wasn't Joe. Why would he partially revocate a continuity government? That's what happened the day before. Which means what? President Trump said it starts. So we're on the start of the what? We're getting out of the military government, moving into the constitutional government again. Starts. It didn't say finishes. Restoration is a term specifically tied to a military government. If you'll go read the field manual 27-10 1956, if you go read the old school manual, it talks about the law of land warfare. And this book and the law of war specifically tells you that supersedes all law when there's a national emergency. President Trump told you from March 2020 on, we've been invaded. We're fighting an invisible enemy. He said our gravest threats are not abroad, they're within. That requires military personnel put in my position, which is what I'm here for, put here for you. Executive Order 13912, March 27, 2020, Title 10, Section 12302, President Trump federalized 1 million reserve components. It's still active. It hasn't been terminated. It made it 4 years, not terminated. Executive Order 13919, Title 10, Section 12304. It's a 2-year in advancement. It's not been terminated. Title 10, ladies and gentlemen, it's a federal call-up. That's presidential. From 21, your little dash here, from 2021 to 2025, quote-unquote Joe does not have one single Title 10 or Title 32 invocation. But you saw the National Guard in Texas, New York. You saw them in a lot of places. If you went to Google, Google would tell you back then, because it's strategic, if you did know what to look up, but you didn't know how to piece it together like I've done for you. Google will tell you that, quote-unquote, Joe terminated Proclamation 9844 from February the 5th, 2019. That was the southern border with the Title 10 in it, proclamation. Well, how did you see all of the troops going through the border in February 2024? President Trump was the only person seen in Del Rio and Eagle Pass, Texas. The hot topics on the news was Del Rio and Eagle Pass. First off, tell me how 2,000 dirt poor Haitians, why would 2,000 dirt poor Haitians who've always floated to Florida, why would 2,000 dirt poor Haitians float all the way across the Gulf of America, somewhere on the Mexican line or down the low-level Texas line? Why would they float all the way over there? And why in the hell would they walk across Mexico all the way just about to El Paso? Why didn't they just go in at Brownsville? 2,000 Haitians over in Del Rio, Texas, you might want to Google and look up where Del Rio, Texas is, and then apply where Haiti is. And why didn't they go to Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and the other parts of Texas? Why in the hell, when they get on land in Mexico and walk all the way over to Del Rio, Texas? The closest nation that they were showing that was trying to enter Del Rio was 1,536 miles away, and you still have to cross a major waterway to get there. What did President Trump show on February the 14th this year for Valentine's? He did a bunch of phony things on White House. 1,537 miles. And I'm the one who talked about the closest nation. Of all topics, President Trump says 1,537 miles, and I've been saying 1,536 miles. No one else has ever presented it that way. Ladies and gentlemen, you just don't realize who watches me and also who. Anyway, it's all validation. So the governor of Texas and the adjutant general standing there with President Trump, you don't at ease a former commander of any kind. If you're a former, you don't at ease them. They're in a fob. President Trump walks in, at ease. You don't salute when you're a former anything, especially if you weren't a veteran before. I can salute. Retirees, we can salute. We typically don't because it looks kind of weird when we're not in uniform and we're saluting at a game or something. We just typically don't. We put our hand on our heart. But other than that, President Trump was saluting the flag all throughout 21 to 25. He wasn't military before. Just because you become president, don't exempt that. That's military. It showed you he wasn't. He was not a former. He was still in. All right, so the governor, the adjutant general. The adjutant general reports to the governor, the state chief executive, unless the National Guard are federalized by Title 10. Then the adjutant general reports to the president, the commander-in-chief. The week before President Trump was in Texas, February 2024, and the week after, 14 states deployed to Texas. When a state leaves their state and goes into another state and there's no pre-established agreement of training with other states, that is a Title 10 only. Because that's federal. The border is federal. The border is Article 2, which is the executive branch. That is not a state duty. Now, all the law of war terms, and then you had the February 2025, the reporter asked President Trump about a capitulation, and then a puppet government with Russia. People, since when, in any time 2016 and prior, have you ever heard the term capitulation or puppet government? Why is it so specific to what I talk about that they're putting out there on mainstream that you never heard before 2016? Then you had, there's so many validations. You had the Turkish president with President Trump September last year in 2025. President Trump said, while I was in, and he paused, while I was in exile, he remained my friend. I was in exile. He paused every time before the word exile. That's putting emphasis on it for you. Government in exile. It's unconventional warfare. All these things were validated to you. Those are all validations. These are law of war manual terms only. The white flag of surrender. Remember Angela Merkel? I gave her the white flag of surrender. It's the white flag of truce negotiations and the law of war manual. None of these terms are found anywhere else except for military law. Now, all from July 2024 all the way to January 2025, they showed quote-unquote Joe not be anywhere near D.C. on media and things of that nature. They showed Kamala. If you went to Google right now and went to Wikipedia page, presidential transitions, it would say Kamala signed off on the transition. Kamala wasn't the president, ladies and gentlemen. She wouldn't be signing off on that. That ain't how that works. This is all for people who would stumble on that right now because we're not done with this yet. They're not ready. It's coming. Oh, it's coming. I can't wait for the 4th of July, boy. I can't wait for that. I cannot wait. I just told my family, and I just told a few friends, we ain't got much longer. All these false accusations and all these idiots out there, all this other stuff, I don't have long to wait. I don't have long to wait. And the golden age and everything that comes after July the 4th, and as we move closer, I don't have long to put up with all these idiots out there who have trashed me and trashed my family, trashed everything. I don't have long to wait. Their days are numbered. They're grasping for straws because they know that they ain't got the IQ. They know that they don't have any kind of strategy. They're not a part of this whatsoever. Their days are numbered, baby. So you patriots, hang on. They showed quote-unquote Joe disappear. Now the media out there, they were saying things like, Joe abandoned D.C. He abandoned everything he's abandoned. Abandoned. That's the term they use, abandoned. Now to the average person out there, what did the average Republican, the average conservative, and even the Democrats and liberals will say, oh, you're picking on him. He's got some cognitive ability problems. But what did the Republican conservatives do? Republicans are worse. Liberals, at least, they're the opposite. Republicans are worse. They will take up for an ear that don't look the same, a nose that looks different, and say it's plastic surgery. And all. You just got a simple answer for everything, and that's not the case, because military strategy shows different. So what do the average Republicans say? They'll say, "Oh, he was dumb anyway, and he was losing his mind. He don't have cognitive this and that." You're missing out, especially if you're a Republican and you love President Trump. If you're really, truly Republican, conservative, love President Trump, you're missing out on validation for President Trump, and you're sticking with bullcrap for nothing. Because I can show you in the Law of War Manual specifically about abandonment. The status of military government continues from the inception of the actual occupation till the invader is expelled by force of arms or himself abandons the conquest, or until the treaty of peace, the country is restored to its original allegiance or becomes incorporated with the domain of the prevailing belligerent. Belligerent will be President Trump. Allegiance, the original allegiance, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, our foundation, our founders, our philosophies, our ideologies, our military laws, our military government, everything, military strategies, military as a whole. Treaty of Peace would be them capitulating. That would be Obama or Hillary or Bill or whoever, however they play it out. I've told people in special operations we have to blend in. Special operators, Michael Jaco, Navy SEAL, and all the special operators I know who have been on heavy assignments, they have to blend in. They have to look like the enemy. That's why so many people out there, influencers, are looking atrocious. You have to blend in. This is an operation. You have to blend in. People say, oh, you've been on podcasts with this person and this person. From 2022, I was on podcasts with everybody. And people, oh, why did you go on with him? Why? I don't like that. Because my mission are the people, the audience. It's that simple. My mission's the audience. We got to get to the people who need to know, want to know, who's going to be a part of moving into the future. So that's why any influencer, any person, your friends or family, if they're trying to deter you out there, don't let them. Let them fall by the wayside. We got enough patriots. We're not going to lose this thing. It's all strategic in the first place. We weren't going to do it if we didn't think we could win it. All right? So don't even. President Trump told you about Iran just a couple days ago. He said, we're about to bomb the hell out of Iran again. And he said, don't worry, they don't have any military capacity. They have nothing. They can't do anything. What are people doing? Oh, God, we're going to war. Blah, blah, blah. You're not even listening. You're not even listening to the commander. You're not even listening because you don't know. laws, orders, regulations, strategies, tactics. You don't know that. So see, you the Patriots, your friends and family, they matter to a level, but they don't if it's going to affect you psychologically. Treat them with dignity and all the other things or whatever. If you ain't got to see them, whatever. Hey, toodaloo, get out of here, right? It's a true separation of the wheat and the chaff. Everything, the military government, everything is validated. And President Trump's nominations show you they're all special operations veterans or they're businessmen and women. That's the original blueprint of President Eisenhower, 5-star general, master strategist. And oh, and by the way, for all you military-industrial complex people out there, and some of you, I know, your friends and family are military-industrial complex. They claim to be a colonel and a this and a that, but they're all, they're uptight about everything. Say, hey, you're showing your military-industrial complex because, by the way, 5-star general, President Eisenhower, never saw a single direct combat, which exposes everything. When you look at the timeline of President Eisenhower, 1961 he gave that speech, and look at all the quote-unquote wars since then. Conflicts. They were all foreign related to the deep state. They weren't actual conflicts. Now, for all you veterans in that time period, that don't mean that your call to action and duty is negated. It don't. What we have to do as veterans is address why we were there. Who put us there? Who put you there? And why were you there? Right? So you should be ticked and mad at the people who created these quote-unquote conflicts. Not your heart and not your right hand and your oath and none of that. You did what you're supposed to do, but they didn't do what they were supposed to do. So you should be mad at them. And that's how we got to prevent the future. And that's what these books talk about, prevention. In our military law, in our military philosophy, Hugo Grotius, 1625, talks about you can't judge a man on his past, but we can judge for the future. We can prevent the person from doing it. You know how you prevent that? You know how you prevent the swamp from growing back, ladies and gentlemen? You have to know your laws and your orders. You need to know your 3 branches of government, their sequence, why they were put in the legislative, executive, judicial, in that sequence. We vote in the first 2. The president nominates the judges, and then the Senate confirms them. See how that? So executive branch nominates, legislative branch confirms. If the judicial branch is not doing what we voted for by the legislative and the executive branches, they're in complete obstruction of justice, and they're violating the very law they claim to stand for. That is what so many Americans are not seeing. That's why they did what they did with the IEPA. That's why they're showing people that. Do you know that last year that it was put into place that no longer one particular federal judge can block a president anymore? And what have they been showing you? They've been showing you these one particular judges, which are all Obama, Clinton, and Bush appointed, blocking President Trump. What do you see Republicans doing? Raising sand over the blocking. They're missing the point. They don't even know the law. If you're going to yell about something and look atrocious yelling, you should be yelling at, hey, they changed the law. One judge can't do that. It has to be that. What are people doing? They're still yelling the same old, same old. The whole thing's a military government, military operation, military occupation, government in exile, puppet government, which those have already taken place. Now we're in the restoration phases of bringing back the constitutional government, and they're doing it by the bigger layers. Iran. Now they're bringing Obama back in the picture. Now they're bringing Hillary back in the picture. Now they're bringing John Kerry, and all these names are popping up that you ain't heard in a while, that's been disappeared for a while. They're bringing them back. They're making them talk trash, and they're making them say this about President Trump. Don't get into the drama of it. Get into the strategy of it. You're not if you're a patriot, you're not the target audience. This is for the people who have never heard any of this. It's that simple. It's not difficult. But be careful who you follow. Be careful who you listen to, because, again, you don't have to be a veteran or military anything or law enforcement anything to know what's going on and be a part of it. But because this is a military operation and the laws currently invoked from 2017 to present day outline it in strategies and tactics that you probably would have never known, but guys like me know, you got to listen to someone who can break that down. Or if you just love drama, then President Trump said, we'll give you what you want, because most people love drama. So if you love that, you want to stay in that, great. But my page is not for you. All right? And it's just, my page is designed strictly to show you what President Trump is the face of. He's the face of it. He's smart, he's brilliant, he's a strategist too, but he's not the sole owner of this. Multiple generals, multiple admirals, world generals, world admirals, multiple people, multiple world leaders who are on the good side of humanity. So you got to be careful who you listen to and who you follow. All right, straight up. Because a guy like me, again, I've been a name and a face from day one, full name, full face, nothing hidden, Billboard hits in country music and all these other things. Independently, my books are independent. I'm independent country music. Don't have a major record label. I beat the Billboard bag. And my books are independent. So that's the key thing. So when you hear all this stuff out there trashing President Trump and trashing Tom Homan and trashing Tom Hadseth and trashing me and all these other things, they're showing you their colors. Because one, women, ladies, females, guys, if I was wrong about something, if it was about being right or wrong, women would have found me out by now, because I am a full name, I am a full face. They'd have found me out. One, by all the stuff here, they'd have found out. Because women, when you tell a woman or a lady or a female of any kind, any background, just a woman, period, you say, hey, fact check this. They're going to fact check it. They're going to read this thing like this. This way, this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, that way, this way. They're going to do it. They're going to go from here to here, here to here, here to here, here to here. They're going to read the references. Like, most men won't even read a magazine. That's how lazy males are. You don't even read a hunting magazine. You don't read it. You look at the pictures. All right, that's why there's so many photos and big photos in male magazines like hunting magazines and fishing magazines. And it's mainly big photos because you're not reading. You don't even read that, right? And these, in things like this, it'll have a reference in there. You got to go look at the little number. In this one, unfortunately, this book, you got to go to the back. Unlike my books, they put all the references in the back like the old school books. So if you see a number in the middle of like right here, you got to go, okay, what's this number 6? And go all the way to the back and go then look up that reference, which typically is on another site on Google somewhere. That's going to lead you to a PDF or .gov or .mil. You got to do that reference stuff. Then you got to apply it in that sentence structure. So it may apply with what you're reading. All these things that I've read, the Law War Manual, 1,254 pages, all your NDAAs are anywhere from 700 to 1,000, 1,500 pages. Your directives, there's I don't know how many hundreds of directives. They all go from a page to 100 pages. Instructions, regulations, publications, manuals. Ain't nobody wants to go toe-to-toe with me. That's why they trash. That's why they trash President Trump, because they can't go toe-to-toe. That's why they trash people, because they can't go toe-to-toe, meaning IQ to IQ. So they do what? They talk bad about you. Because that's where they are. That's who they are. That's where they are and who they are. And then this book, like my first one here, it's a little one, right? Just to get your feet wet. It's a workbook. It's all in a chronological order of the key things that took place. And then part 2, right? So what I did is I hated being in college. I hated it. This is basically a Cliff Note book, where I took all these thousands and thousands and thousands of pages that people are not going to read, ain't got time to read, that I've read and studied, and I broke it down to the Cliff Note version, the simple form. This is a simple form. But at the same time, it's not simple from another manner. You shouldn't be wanting simplicity. You should want to elevate your thinking. You should want to empower yourself. Don't be a dummy. I use terms dumb, stupid, moron. I don't think everybody's dumb, stupid, and a moron. I don't believe that, because I wouldn't be sitting here teaching you all the time. All right, but I use it when people are acting dumb, and the comments out there all over the board. I do that on purpose because it's to elevate people, to going, hey, don't act dumb. If you ain't dumb, don't act dumb. Don't display that you're dumb. But people like me can say, hey, the whole thing it's all outlined. It's all right here. It's tough. It's going to be tough to read because most of you never heard of this before. And that's okay. It's when you say it's BS, it's hogwash, this ain't so, that's a bunch of crap. Or influencers out there, that Derek Johnson, he's doing this, and that, and this, that. These people don't know me from Adam's house cat. And my records show where I've been and what I do. And again, don't try to destroy someone with lies when I can destroy you with the truth. All right? So these things empower you. Don't dummy yourself down. Elevate yourself up. If an influencer is not trying to elevate you with things that matter versus drama and propaganda, negativity, lies, false accusations, they're not part of the operation, one. They're not good for you, two. And they're not doing exactly what the Bible, a lot of you Christians, they're not even doing what the Bible constructs and says. It says that salt water, fresh water can't come from the same spring. It says that what's in your heart will come out your mouth. All right? All right, so these things right here, these are number one for a reason. People did it. I'm independent. I did this all on my own. I published it. I sought out the company to print it. We did this. This is artificial intelligence right here. This is what that is, AI. All that imagery. All right? We did it independently. And then people made it number one. When you're independent publisher, people make it number one. That's what's more impressive is an independent versus a publisher, because publishers have all the contacts. They go in the stores and they have people. They have book clubs. They have and a lot of people, New York bestsellers, this is also a known fact, some authors have put up and bought thousands of copies and bought them to give themselves that. And you can track all this. You can see all that. You can see where you can tell by certain things. So see, mine are straight up all people. That reflects what the military is doing and what President Trump is the face of. Nothing in this book talks about me. Nothing. And I tell you in the book, my biography it's not even part of this. If you want to know about me, you come to my music page. I put up a little bio there. But this book, Forever Time Stamped in History, tells you. It's not about me. This is a military operation. It's about protecting you, our future, and the 7 generations out Native American mentality. Where every generation, if you'll live like you're protecting your 7th great-grandchildren, then every generation will pass it forward. And you'll know what you're supposed to know. But you got to be careful who you listen to and who you follow. And again, it sounds braggadocious and it sounds cocky. It does. But guess what? President Trump and I, we have the same numerology. We have the same frequency. Donald Trump, Derek Johnson equals 138 in simple gematria. Baron Trump is 138. In the Hebrew, we're number 982. It's President Donald John Trump. Well, it's actually President Donald Trump is 982. Derek Johnson, 982. We're on the same. That's why we talk a lot. That's why everything seems cohesive. Once you read and study the laws, the orders, and especially military strategies and military tactics, and how on 3 to 5 days, 3 to 6 weeks, and 36 months ahead, it's because this is a bigger operation. This is a godly operation. It's a biblical operation, historical operation, monumental operation. It's the bigger piece first. It's a spiritual warfare, information warfare. All right? But if you're going to be a part of this, you should be a part of the right things, the wholesome things, which is that. The whole visual that he gives you, he put this there April the 2nd, 2023. And I close with this. I signed my publicity contract to write this book right here first. I signed for this February the 18th, 2023 at Trump International private golf course with the man present wishing me a happy birthday. Make the place yours. It's your day. It wasn't my actual birthday, but I was celebrating it on that day. He has a reserved table right by the window, and his back goes against the wall, which is protected. All right, but that whole back side of that window, there ain't nothing remotely close to anything to do with his safety. But when you go to Trump International, if you ever get that privilege by guest invite only, all right, if you ever get that privilege by a guest only, then you go in there. And it's a really tiny spot, the actual dining area. And his table's over in the corner. And then there's a flag behind his chair. You'll see it in my photos. Timestamp, holding up contract, thumbs up. I'm the first person that's been allowed, outside of his family and outside of the people when he invites you to the table, I'm the first person who's been able to sit there solo by myself at the table in his chair and sign my contract. Timestamps don't lie. Timestamps show you, and you can pull up on your iPhones. It says where Trump International. This is how when they catch murderers on forensic shows, they show you, hey, don't take your iPhone anywhere. Better leave your iPhone because it'll ping you right to the exact location. I signed my contract at Trump International private golf course, guest invite only, sitting in his chair at his reserved table with him present. Got the thumbs up with him. You ought to know the thumbs up for all those idiots out there who call President Trump a trafficker and Epstein and all. When he does this, when he points this way, that's the famous point that they're involved in it. When you get a thumbs up, that means you're good. I like this guy. I like this lady. Whoever it is, thumbs up. Because he's not getting in a photo with just anybody. Thumbs up. So when you hear false accusations out there, you got to go back and say, hey, President Trump gave him a thumbs up. It's timestamped at Trump International, private establishment, guest invite only. Secret Service already checks your rear ends out 2 weeks in advance anyways. But, boom. And let me go ahead and tell you, I don't have one on me, but I was wearing blue jeans at a country club. I had a knife like country boys and cowboys do right here in my pocket. You think they let a knife around the president if I was any kind of threat to the president or anything? I don't think so. President Trump knows who I am. All my friends that are members of his, some want to be known, some don't. But it was 43 days before President Trump ever put this on his ball cap. Ever. This was not on there until April the 2nd, 2023. And 43 days before that became that, I signed my contract to write the book, the only books, #1 bestsellers that outline the 45-47. So you got to be careful who you follow. And majority of them out there, God love them, because I don't. But a majority of them out there are misleading you with drama, trash, propaganda. They're a different face, different look from the days of 2016 prior. They're fake news like President Trump talks about, but you got to hold that power. You have to feed yourself with what matters. President Trump gave you a visual. You got the information. You have everything you need to know with laws and orders to apply. And once you do that, you'll abandon and you'll forget and you'll get rid of all this negativity in your life. You're going to feel much better. It'll be like a natural substance going in your body. You won't even need it anymore. It'll be gone. All this negativity and drama. When you know what President Trump is the face of and us military work with military laws, military orders, military strategies, military tactics, you'll see it. And you'll eliminate all this negativity. You'll eliminate all the drama. And your life will clear up even more. You'll get to go more to do the things you love. Spend more time knowing that, no, don't get relaxed. Like General Flynn says, don't get relaxed. No, you still need to be involved. You still got to be involved. But you need to know your laws, your orders. Where can you play a part? Where can you be a role? But you got to know your laws and your orders. You need to know your local representatives, how they operate, how they function. Don't yell at them. Don't cuss at them. You need to be constructive with them. If they need criticism in the future when we're back to a full constitutional government, they're not there right now, so they don't need you for that. But when they do get back to that, you need to learn how to speak to them with dignity and respect as a human. But if they're being whatever, if they're irrational, if they're being unlawful, then you need to know the law in order to give them constructive criticism and say, hey, me and my Patriots, we know what you're doing is unlawful, and guess what? Voting day is coming up, and we're going to vote you out. We'll see if those people do what? Change. Say, hey, I'm sorry. Man, I got caught. You're right. You're correct. You're accurate. Hey, I love what I do. I made a mistake here, but I'd love to keep my place if I can work with this with you. In order for us to get back to that, you have to reflect that too. So you need to know how the three branches operate, how they function, and then how your representatives operate from a state level to a U.S. level. And then you'll realize that all this stuff you've been yelling at a U.S. level actually comes back down to your state level, and you ain't been doing what you're supposed to be doing on your state level. So it's that simple. And again, you have to share these things. You have to share these things. Share. Because even though it sounds braggadocious and whatever, I am the only one that talks about it like this. And then I show people who to listen to, some good people out there. But a lot of people, it's the same old stuff. It's not empowering you. And if it don't empower you, give you positivity, or motivate you somehow, even if you feel a little guilty, if you're struggling, you're not failing. Struggle don't mean you're failing. Struggle just means, hey, if you're reading something that I've provided and you struggle, hey, put it down. Don't get frustrated. It's still there. Just because someone don't like me, it's still there. That's why I've been joking. I was like, well, you hate me? Well, the law's still the law. If they kill me, the law's still the law. You know, so everything in place is still there, no matter what. So no matter what you say. So it's kind of funny. But that's what you need to know. And it's all there. Be careful who you follow. Also, my pages, Linktree. Now, there's a fake Linktree already out there. So it's still got to go back to sharing videos, share. These are not monetized. I don't make money on these videos. So there's that. But share these videos because people are getting to the wrong pages and they're being misled by frauds and scams. So Linktree, linktr.ee/1776 Nation. That's my Linktree. If you're on Instagram listening right now, Instagram, I'm limited. I'm not going to post 1 million posts on Instagram like people do. Instagram, if you're listening there, you need to go to my Facebook, my Telegram, my X account. I post heavy material there. I don't bait you like some of these podcasters do and all these quote-unquote influencers. They'll put a little question and you'll run their algorithm up. Everything I provide you is material. And it all goes to a .gov, a .mil, and it all applies to 45-47 only. That's it. The only way you can support me is buying the books from me, rattletrap1776.com. I sign them all. I've signed every copy since December 2023. I've signed every single copy. All right, since 2023. And I still sign them. If you go through me. If you're international, you got to go through Amazon because we don't have that capacity and that capability. But other than that, and then also my music. That's the only other thing. But again, apparel and music, that just goes hand in hand with it. That's the only way you can support me. You can ask my management. We have turned down so many things that people have tried to, hey, I'll endorse you. Hey, I'll sponsor you. This, that, no. I'll say, no, thank you. I don't need it. Don't want it because, good, I'm serving beyond my service. And it may be bragging a little bit, but let me go ahead and tell you what they call that, ladies and gentlemen. That's called integrity. All right? And that's what your other people out there must reflect to you. Anybody who calls himself an influencer, a podcaster, a Republican, Democrat, whether they're a representative or Senate, if they're not consistent with their actions, that's how the swamp grew. That's how inside trade happened. That's how all those things happened because they were getting paid on the back end back here. They were writing all these unconstitutional bills that became laws that are unconstitutional because they got paid. That's what they call lobbying. That's why President Trump said we're ending defense contracts and lobbyists because all they do is make excuses to keep us in wars. All right, so you need someone who's consistent. The only way you can support me is things that you have to absolutely want to purchase. I have no subscriptions. All right, I don't talk about financials. So if you hear something out there and it looks AI generated, it's going to be AI generated. If it's me talking about financials, because I don't talk about financials. All right, I don't talk about that at all. All right. Now I know about the quantum system, but I don't talk about anything financial tied to it. All right. So all that stuff's false. It's false and it's fraudulent and it's scandalous. All right. So you got to know my link tree. All of those accounts are mine. linktr.ee/1776 Nation, rattletrap1776.com, DerekJohnsonCountry.com, and then also the documents.info. And then I post these videos because they don't stay on Facebook long anymore. That's Facebook's new thing. They delete them, so I take them to Rumble, and I put them on Rumble, and then I put the link over here. So these are great for your friends and family, to show them that this is not what's going on. This is a military operation. It's a military occupation. Military everything. It was a crossroads of civilization. It was undesirable, some of it, but we had to do it. And in the end, you're going to see that you're going to love it. And everything that President Trump has said, it will be in fruition. And you're going to remember this day that I told you. You're going to remember the days that I told you. Days, plural, and day. You're going to remember. I'm going to be standing when it's all said and done. And all these others out there who have trashed President Trump, all these Republicans, conservatives, quote-unquote influencers who have jumped ship with President Trump, and all of the people working for you, they're going to be sorry for it. And I hope you remember them, because they don't deserve a platform. People like me, I didn't even want a platform, but guess what God said? You're going to get it, and you're going to lead the people to all the abundant stuff, all the things of abundance that empower you to know exactly what's going on. And you have no excuses outside of that.